Chapter 2295. When Nero saw Isabel again, the latter had already walked out of the secret room in the library. However, there were still a couple of Holy See soldiers guarding the door of the secret room. "What's the result of the search?" Isabel asked in a deep voice. "We followed the markings on the map you gave us and opened the secret rooms one by one." Nero shook her head and said, "Some of these secret rooms have already been opened, and some of them haven't. However, we didn't find anything." Isabel frowned. Nero continued, "However, we found a gap in the deep pit where the main cannon hit. We sent people down to investigate and found some new footprints. There's a huge hidden space deep underground. I'm afraid that Rose Earl is still alive." Hidden space underground? There are signs of someone opening the gate. Isabel tapped her finger on the table as she was thinking. The God-blessed church on Laputa was formed by the defeated soldiers of the Holy See. In the war 15 years ago, almost all of the elites of the former God-blessed church were killed. Even the former pope died in that war. Therefore, many of the secrets of the God-blessed church became secrets that no one knew the answer to after the death of the previous pope, including the location of the myriad element mother, which was the most important item in the God-blessed church. As for the current Laputa's Pope Elohim, he only became the new pope after the Laputa reorganized the Holy See. Of course, Elohim's position in the Holy See was not low. He was even one of the few people who had real power after the former pope. At the same time, Elohim was also the person in charge of the hybrid project. He belonged to the pro-war faction of the Holy See, and he even wanted to control the taboo power of the hybrids. Isabel looked at Nero coldly, and this young knight was a bit confused. Isabel didn't say anything. She only thought about Nero's growth and the death of the conservative faction of the new Holy See in Laputa. "Get ready. I'm going down," Isabel said quickly. Isabel quickly said, "We don't have much time. I believe the commotion in the City of God's protection will attract the attention of the vampire palace soon." Nero nodded quickly. He also understood that with his current combat strength, if he were to encounter the army of the Royal Court of Vampires, there was only the possibility of being annihilated. Vampires could see easily even in the dark. At this time, Arthaces could easily see everything in front of him. The further they went, the more obvious the traces of manual opening became. In the end, they even stepped on the flat floor. It was a passageway with no end in sight. "If it's safe to leave this place, I'll give you what you want, Alan." In the quiet atmosphere, Asash's voice suddenly rang out. This caused Mr. Allen, who had been silent most of the time, to have some obvious ups and downs in his emotions. At the very least, Mr. Asakes could hear the guy's heartbeat speeding up a little. "If this passageway can lead to the outside, I am confident that I can help you escape the Holy See's pursuit, Count." Mr. Allen seemed to have become excited. "I've been operating in the City of God Bless for so many years. It's not in vain." "I don't doubt it." Mr. Asakes chuckled softly. He was more concerned about when Isabel's men would appear. There seemed to be some symbols here? K.R. Lily held a torch and stood in front of the wall of the passageway. "Look at this mark. I seem to have seen this mark somewhere." Mr. Asakes looked at it and said, "In the information of the Holy See, many documents are classified as top secret. This seems to be some kind of top secret mark. But I've never seen any information with the same mark. Maybe it's not important, or maybe it's the most important," Alan said coldly. "Judging from the secrecy of this place, it can only be the latter. This place might be related to universal essence." Asakes suddenly looked at Alan. The expression of the owner of the dungeon slightly changed, and his breathing couldn't help but quicken. He was currently being troubled by the corrosion of 10,000 element. The most important thing was obviously information on 10,000 element, and whether or not he could survive. "My Lord Count, you mean? I know something about universal essence." Asakes shook his head and said, But it's very little. It's just some marginal information. It was privately recorded by a researcher in the Holy See, in his diary. What exactly is universal essence? Asake said, an energy source similar to a perpetual motion machine. According to the description in the researcher's diary, universal essence can transform any substance. No, perhaps it is created out of thin air, to be more precise. Created out of thin air? Alan frowned subconsciously and said, don't you need raw materials? I'm afraid there's no need. Mr. Arthesis thought for a while and said, this kind of a myriad elements seems to be able to refine something out of a fantasy through some kind of method, creating something out of nothing. However, there is a restriction, and that is, the thing that can be refined must be something within one's knowledge. Something within cognition? Alan was stunned. What exactly do you mean? When it comes to knowledge, we should be limitless. We are constantly improving our knowledge of ourselves. Could it be that this substance can also be infinitely improved? In theory, that's the case. Mr. Asake said slowly, it's a very inconceivable and absurd delusion. But obviously the Holy See was indeed doing research in this area in the past, and it seems that they really came up with something. Alan lowered his head and said, I've come into contact with universal essence, and the corrosion on my body is the best proof. But universal essence was once in my hands, so it obviously doesn't have the fantasy ability you mentioned. Perhaps you opened it the wrong way. Mr. Asake shrugged. This reason, Mr. Allen realized that he actually had no way to refute it. Could it be that the Holy See's return this time is for universal essence? Allen seemed to have understood something, and his voice was alarmed. Basically, when the Holy See retreated, they took away what they could take away, and destroyed as much as possible what they couldn't take away. Mr. Asake said, logically speaking, if it's universal essence, it should be the highest priority. It's impossible for them not to take it away back then. Alan pondered for a moment. There was no problem with this inference. What if there's a reason why they can't take it away? However, he thought of another possibility. Mr. Asake muttered, let's continue walking and we'll find out. Alan nodded. He was more concerned about his own safety. By the way, Lord Earl, in your opinion, when will the army of the Vampire Court arrive? What army of the Vampire Court? Alan hesitated and said, Lord Earl, please don't joke around. Didn't you contact the court when the God-blessed city was attacked? Moreover, even if you didn't take the initiative to contact them, the court wouldn't just ignore you, right? After all, you were the hero who killed the previous pope of God-blessed church, Cicero. Mr. Asake frowned. Whether the previous Pope Cicero was really killed by him, he himself didn't know. Maybe they're already on their way here. He thought for a moment and said, in fact, other than the battle 15 years ago, he had never been to the royal court of the vampires. In these 15 years, he had not contacted the royal court of the vampires even once. As for the vampire true ancestor who broke through God-blessed city, he had never seen him before. How did he become the new ruler of God-blessed city? So it's you who killed the Pope Cicero. You're the hero of my race. The true ancestor said that God-blessed city is yours. Do your best. That's probably it. A group of vampires ran over and said while looking at the confused Alan, am I not the child of the realm? All the black-armored warriors in the castle were captured, and the human servants in the castle were also imprisoned in one place. The surroundings were very quiet. Griffith brought Yulia with him, quickly traversing through the castle, avoiding some of the church's warriors who were carrying out their search. After a while, Griffith opened one of the walls, and there was a mezzanine space inside. Griffith skillfully took an oil lamp from the wall of the mezzanine and lit it up. Although it was called a mezzanine, it was basically made up of stairs that went up and down. Through this secret mezzanine, it seemed like it could lead to anywhere in the castle. It just leads to a few fixed places. As if he saw through Yulia's thoughts, Griffith said calmly, in terms of structure, if the entire castle has this mezzanine, it's easy to be discovered. However, it's safe here for now. Yulia showed a pitiful expression. However, Griffith wasn't moved and walked down with the oil lamp. Yulia had no choice but to follow him. After a while, Griffith opened the wall of the mezzanine again and walked out. What is this place? Yulia was surprised. This peculiar place was actually filled with densely packed containers. Shockingly, the organs of various creatures were soaking in these containers. It seemed to be a biological laboratory. The laboratory wasn't small, and there were many containers, but it wasn't crowded. In the center of the laboratory there were some rusty instruments and a bed made of metal, the kind that was welded with shackles and shackles. The bricks on the ground showed a reddish-brown color. It was a thick layer of solidified blood, like a hard shell. This is the place where the God Bless Church used to do biological experiments, Griffith said calmly. After the Earl took over the castle, he found this place and then sealed it. The door outside has been sealed. But we can come in through the secret passage? Yulia was stunned. Since there is a door, why did they build a secret passage? Who knows what the people of the church thought back then? Griffith shook his head. Maybe some people didn't want to come in openly, or they wanted to secretly take something out from here. This is a specimen of a vampire's corpse. In a round container that was as tall as two people, Yulia saw a male vampire's corpse. With her knowledge, she could easily see that all the organs of this vampire's corpse had been removed, not only the vampire's corpse, but she also saw many baby specimens in the containers. These babies seemed to be born with deformities and horrible shapes. I don't like this place. Yulia clasped her hands and said, Master Griffith, didn't you say that the secret passage can lead to other places? Should we leave this place? Useless, cowardly woman. This was Griffith's evaluation, but in this environment, Yulia's reaction was normal. If she didn't move, he could only suspect her origin. But the reality was different. This woman had once resisted her curiosity and turned a blind eye to the opening of the prison door. She had turned around and left without hesitation. The other places are the library and the Pope's Hall that used to be the God Bless Church. There is also a path, but it has collapsed. I don't know where it leads to. Now, the library and the Pope's Hall are guarded by the soldiers of the church. Do you really want to go there? Let's stay here, Yulia said with a trembling voice. Griffith suddenly chuckled. Miss Yulia, don't you have any thoughts about this secret passage? Thoughts? The smile in Griffith's eyes became bigger. Yes, thoughts in your heart. Yulia swallowed and said, what thoughts can I have? Like I said, this secret passage is connected to the library. Griffith walked closer. Aren't you curious how I know about the existence of this secret passage? Or, to go deeper, have I ever used this secret passage to spy on Countess Rose, who has been hiding in the library all this time? Mr. Griffith, you are the Earl's loyal subordinate. How could you do such a thing? Yulia said quickly, the Earl must have told you about this secret passage, right? What secrets do you have? Griffith said with a playful expression. Mr. Griffith, what are you talking about? Yulia stepped back subconsciously. Griffith chuckled and said, during the selection competition, Nord pointed out that you were the winner and took you away. Before Nord died, he wanted me to bring you to him. At the same time, you became Earl Rose's VIP guest. Without a doubt, you are just an ordinary person. Although you are pretty, it isn't enough to make you special. Those marks, were you the one who left them? Yulia couldn't help but frown. Her expression changed instantly. Norsta, why are you here? Griffith subconsciously looked away. By the time he reacted, Yulia had already rushed to the entrance of the secret passage. Griffith narrowed his eyes. As a vampire, his speed was much faster than that of a normal human. He had already blocked Yulia's path. Yulia kicked out without saying anything. However, Griffith easily grabbed her ankle and threw her against the wall. Your strength is not bad, but it's a pity that your foundation is too low. Griffith walked up to the injured Yulia and looked at her coldly. He was about to say something when Yulia suddenly stopped in front of him. Unexpectedly, Yulia said, "I'll tell you their secret. Please let me go." "Really, I can tell you now." Griffith opened his mouth slightly. He thought that it would take some effort. He didn't expect the other party to give in so quickly. Moreover, his intuition told him that this woman was the type that was afraid of death. Griffith smiled playfully again. "Tell me about it." "Actually, Nord isn't from this world," Yulia said slowly. "Even Earl Rose isn't from this world. They came from the same place and knew each other a long time ago." Griffith narrowed his eyes. "Continue." His intuition told him that this woman's words were true. She wasn't lying. #######PS 1/11 End of chapter. Chapter 2296. In the dusty biology lab, Griffith was very interested in the other world that Yulia mentioned. He couldn't wait to know more. "What kind of world is that?" Yulia got a chance to breathe. She opened her mouth and said, "Living in such a barren world, you can never imagine the beauty of that place. There are no wars there, and the resources are abundant. All the races live in harmony. The people living there are active, passionate, and cheerful. Children can grow up in the way they like, and adults won't have a moment of collapse." "Impossible," Griffith sneered. "There's no such place in this world. That's why I said that it's another world, the other world that people know." Yulia said seriously, "Don't use your shallow knowledge to try to understand the truth that you can't understand, but it really exists," the woman in front of him said with certainty, and Griffith couldn't help but feel suspicious. "Why should I believe you?" Griffith shook his head. "I can't prove it," Yulia said indifferently, "because this is a secret that only exists between Nasta, Asakes, and me. We come from the same place. It's a free country that you've never seen before." Griffith said indifferently, "Is that so? Since it's such a beautiful world, why did you come here?" Yulia opened her mouth but didn't say anything. In the end, she stammered, "Of course, because something happened." In an instant, Yulia felt suffocated. Griffith's pale hand had already grabbed her neck. She could even feel that the fragile bones in her neck would break at any time. Yulia struggled in pain and frantically slapped Griffith's chest. However, this kind of struggle was nothing more than a tickle to Griffith, who had a strong body. Griffith slowly raised Yulia. "Why did Nasta come to you? What secrets do you have between you?" I didn't lie to you. It's true. What I said is all true," Griffith sneered and increased his strength again. Yulia's face turned green. Her legs kicked in the air. "Door. There's a door. A door that connects two worlds. Door. Door. Door." Griffith was silent. He had almost reached the limit of his control. If he increased his strength a little more, he could crush the woman's throat. Even if he didn't move, the woman would die of suffocation after a while. Time ticked by. Griffith didn't increase his strength, but under the suffocation, Yulia's eyeballs started to bulge. Griffith frowned and suddenly loosened his grip. Yulia instantly fell to the ground. She was powerless. She was drooling in pain. She used her mouth and nose to breathe and cough. She really had a close brush with death. Griffith lifted his leg. Yulia moved back in fear. She hugged her body and curled up. Trembling, she said, "I didn't lie to you. I didn't." Griffith squatted down and thought for a while. "Is that the door of the shadow?" Yulia was still trembling in fear. "I don't know. Nasta, Asakes, and I are all adventurous. We found that door in an ancient relic. Nasta, he accidentally triggered it. The door opened and sucked us in. The time doesn't match. You are just a normal human. Nasta and Rose Countess appeared at least 15 years ago. But you are not old. I don't know why. Yulia shook her head. The time between the two worlds is not equal. I was only a few steps late when I was sucked in by the door, but I am already so far behind Nasta and Asakes. Griffith was silent. Where is that door? He suddenly asked. It disappeared. Yulia smiled bitterly. At least, when I woke up, I didn't see it. I'm afraid we were randomly teleported. During the selection, Nasta recognized me and took me away as the winner. After we briefly discussed our situation, we were attacked by Hercules and Mr. Allen before we could talk about it in detail. You know what happened after that? Griffith furrowed his brows. Yulia said hesitantly, Nasta was locked up by Asakes. I know Asakes is really angry, but he won't really kill Nasta. Because they and I are good friends. Asakes is just angry. I will persuade him to release Nasta. No matter what you say, in this place, only the three of us are true companions. Nasta is already dead, Griffith said suddenly. Yulia's face paled. She opened her mouth, and in the silence, a tear fell from the corner of her left eye. Lowering her head, Yulia subconsciously wiped the tear stains on her face. She lightly covered her mouth, as if all the strength in her body had been sucked out. How did he die? The Count killed him with his own hands, Griffith said calmly. Impossible! Yulia suddenly shouted in agitation. You lied to me. Asakes definitely wouldn't do that. They are blood brothers. How could he? They are blood brothers? Griffith was startled. Do you think I'll be imprisoned here forever? You don't understand. No one understands the relationship between Asakes and me. He won't really kill me. Think about it. Why did I gain his trust after all these years? I know a secret about him. Because of this secret, he won't kill me. I'll regain everything sooner or later. No one would understand that the relationship between Nasta and Arthaces was a secret. If what this woman said was true, it seemed explainable. Don't worry. Nasta isn't dead. But at this time, Griffith said calmly, I lied to you, I just wanted to see your reaction. You acted well, I almost believed you. Yulia turned and stared at Griffith angrily. She looked like a female leopard that would have pounced on him if not for the fact that she couldn't defeat him. Besides, it was he who asked me to lead you to the dungeon, Griffith said calmly. Of course you weren't lured. If the three of them were really companions from the other world, it seemed reasonable that Nasta wanted to plead with Asakes through Yulia. However, Griffith instinctively felt that there was something fishy going on. The otherworld hypothesis was too vague. He still couldn't believe it. Take me to him. Yulia took a deep breath and said, Let him tell you personally whether I'm lying or not. Don't worry. I will. Griffith said calmly, but not now. Wait until the people from the God-blessed church leave. Do you know why Nasta wants to see you? Because. Yulia opened her mouth subconsciously. Then she suddenly changed the topic. I think he wants me to plead with Asakes for him. She tilted her head and let her hair hang down, covering half of her face. However, she seemed to be looking at something out of the corner of her eyes. Griffith caught Yulia's little movement clearly. He reached out his hand at lightning speed toward Yulia. A blood-curdling scream rang out. Yulia covered her bloody ear in shock and anger. At the same time, a blood-stained earring appeared in Griffith's hand. It was torn off from Yulia's ear. Give it back! Yulia threw herself at Griffith recklessly. However, she was no match for a vampire. You seem to be very nervous about this earring? Griffith, who easily subdued Yulia, chuckled. He reached out his hand again and pulled off the other earring of Yulia. You misunderstood me. It's just my instinct. Yulia panicked. It's not important. Then I'll break it, Griffith said directly. He put one of the earrings on the ground and lifted his leg. No. It's my mother's relic. I beg you. Yulia immediately begged. I can't lose it. Griffith had already stepped on it. But at this moment, Yulia directly stretched out her hand and covered the earring. This step directly stepped on her palm. Yulia screamed in pain. Griffith ignored her and lifted his leg again. Yulia said in panic, "You can't break it! You can't break it! If you break it, I won't be able to return to my original world. I beg you. I'll do anything you want me to do. I beg you. You can suck my blood. I'll be your slave. Really. This is my only hope." What exactly is this? Griffith was still stepping on Yulia's palm. We found this in the historical remains when we were exploring. Yulia said with a pained expression, "I took one, Norsta also took one, and Asakes had one. There are grooves for these gems on the door. This is the key to open the door." Norsta is looking for you because of your key? No, he wants me to steal Asashiz's key from him. Yulia said faintly. I don't know what happened to the two brothers in the past 10 years. I have a feeling that Norsta wanted to abandon Asakes and leave alone. However, he had no choice but to continue staying by Asashiz's side. Why? Because of the door. Yulia smiled bitterly and said, Norsta isn't a research genius, but Asakes is very good at it. Norsta told me that Asakes seemed to have found traces of the door after 10 years of research. Also, this door that can connect the two worlds seems to have been built from this world. Norsta still needs to rely on Asakes to find the location of the door, so he has to continue staying by his side. No wonder Rose Countess had been collecting ancient documents from all over the world all these years. It turns out, Griffith was moved. He thought to himself, the door was built here? Rose Countess's behavior had always been very strange. How could she trust Norsta? Norsta wasn't her embrace target. Norsta wasn't afraid at all. Norsta and Rose Countess both treated Yulia very differently. Could it be that there really was a door that could lead to another world? Moreover, it was a dream world where there was no war and people didn't have to fight for resources? A real dream world. Miss Yulia, I won't easily believe you, Griffith said calmly. Griffith said indifferently, unless I see it with my own eyes, otherwise, I will temporarily keep this pair of earrings for you. At this time, Griffith violently pried open Yulia's fingers that were grabbing onto the earrings. In the end, under her resentful gaze, he directly swallowed the pair of earrings into his mouth. Yulia's face instantly turned ashen. You don't have to despair. Griffith glanced at her and said calmly, if what you said is true, I will naturally return the earrings to you. Besides, if there really is such a dream world, I am also very interested. Yulia seemed to have thought of something terrifying. Her voice trembled as she said, You want to, what? Am I not welcome? Griffith smiled faintly. Yulia seemed to have gone crazy. No. I won't allow it. I won't let you go to my hometown. You are a vampire. Once you go there, it will be a disaster. An unprecedented disaster. Even if I die, I won't. Norsta and Rose Countess, aren't they vampires? Griffith sneered. Yulia was instantly rendered speechless. It was as if her soul had been sucked out of her body. She muttered to herself, the free and fair goddess of dawn, what have I done, goddess of dawn? A religion from another world. Griffith's heart skipped a beat. He secretly remembered the name of this goddess. What's your relationship with Norsta? Griffith suddenly asked. Yulia said faintly, he is my adoptive father. Griffith nodded his head casually. Wait here. I will go out and check the situation. After saying that, Griffith left through the secret passageway in the mezzanine. He opened the door to the secret passageway and then closed it again. However, he did not leave immediately. Instead, he stood outside the wall and listened. A faint sobbing sound slowly entered Griffith's ears. Father, can we still go back to our hometown? Father, where are you? I am scared. I am really scared. I want to go back. Hometown. Our home. The sobbing sound gradually calmed down. However, Griffith's heart was not calm. An alternate world like Utopia, huh? He slowly sighed and instantly disappeared into the darkness of the secret passageway. Hashtag 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 PS1. Same as before. PS2. The number of chapters in the previous chapter is wrong. How can I have 100 chapters? Sad face. End of chapter. Chapter 2297. There was nothing wrong with Yulia's heartbeat. Griffith listened attentively to Yulia's heartbeat during the conversation. The other world that Yulia mentioned might exist, but Griffith's rationality still made him want to deny it. However, a utopian country, a country without vampires, where only normal humans like Yulia lived, an unrealistic desire seemed to be ignited without him noticing. Griffith was still very calm. It's a pity that the embrace consumes a lot of vitality, or else, if it weren't for the fact that the God bless the church had occupied the castle and was in danger, it would be much easier to verify the authenticity of the information. Did Lady Isabel go down the deep pit? Yes, I heard that the traces of Rose Earl were found down there. Perhaps we can find that thing as well. What is Lady Isabel trying to find? I heard that it's the most important thing to the Holy See. It's related to whether we can win this war. The soldiers of the Holy See who passed by were talking about something. After they left, Griffith's figure slowly floated up. This was the special ability he got after becoming a vampire. He could distort light to deceive people's sight. He wasn't really invisible. She was curled up in the corner of the biological laboratory. She seemed to be physically and mentally exhausted. She seemed to be dreaming of something and was making soft sleep-talking noises. Father. Where are you, Lady Nan? This is the first time I've heard you mention your father. Yulia suddenly opened her eyes and rubbed them hard. In the next second, she rushed over with tears and snot. Boss! She missed him. She didn't care. She sized up the black-haired young man in front of her. Her boss, the owner of the shop, the omnipotent boss. Boss, boss, boss. She really wanted to be like her boss. Really. Especially at this time. She almost thought that she was dreaming, but her boss did appear in the page world of the Holy Land. Boss, are you here to save me? An expectant voice sounded. Lady Nan, Luocio did not answer the question directly. He only said softly, Please give me your hand. Yulia. Nan Xiaonan reached out her hands without hesitation. Boss Luo also reached out his hand and covered her palm. The palm that had been trampled into a bloody mess by Griffith was instantly healed. But soon, another bloody mess appeared on the palm. You won't be able to explain yourself if your hand suddenly recovers, Luocio said slowly. Thank you, boss. Lady Nan immediately narrowed her eyes. Boss, you see, it's quite inconvenient for me to be here. How about, Lady Nan is really an outstanding employee. Boss Luo smiled and said, It's really an eye-opener for me to get through the crisis when you don't have the ability. No, I was just trying my best. Hearing such praises directly from the boss's mouth, this witch from the other world's academic faction suddenly felt a little embarrassed. I believe that with Lady Nan's wisdom, even if you don't use your abilities, you'll be able to overcome all difficulties, Boss Luo said expectantly. I'm looking forward to Lady Nan's next performance. Boss, just give me the ability to turn into mist. If it doesn't work, I'll give it to some of my friends from Star Creation. Let's follow the rules here. Boss Luo smiled and said, I believe in your ability. F*CKU. F*CK. Young Mistress Nan's mental state exploded. If she didn't scare Griffith just now, her boss would have already taken action? F*CK. She was somewhat emotional and said angrily, Boss, it's so hard for me. Didn't you already get a lot of materials in the last world? Boss Luo said calmly. Lady Nan was dazed. She did get a lot of materials, but the key was that when she was taken away by the vortex, she didn't have time to take away those materials. Lady Nan was about to cry blood in her heart. Boss Luo said, I'll keep the materials for you for now. I'll return them to you when we go back. Treat them as this time's reward. Those materials are enough for your black soul body to evolve to a good stage. Lady Nan wanted to cry but had no tears. But I fought so hard to get them back. You picked them up. Boss Luo smiled casually and said, I saw it. Lady Nan smiled embarrassedly. So, in the last world, the boss was hiding in the dark and peeping? Sure enough, the pages didn't appear in the last world. She had already guessed it. Holy Land Page World, Pilot Page World, the pages of the 2 consecutive page worlds were taken away by the boss himself. It seemed that the boss didn't intend to let others know the contents of the diaries in these 2 worlds. She subconsciously rubbed her bangs. Boss, what should I do next? Boss Luo thought for a while and said, If I don't appear, what will you do? F***ck, this kind of question again. Lady Nan wailed in her heart, but she still said her thoughts. I'll try my best to gain Griffith's trust. I need to find Mr. Assake's through him. He's now a superior vampire and should be much stronger than Griffith. As long as I return to his side, the crisis on me will basically be solved. But Griffith probably won't let you see Assake's, Boss Luo said casually. I know. Lady Nan nodded. So I made him believe in the existence of the key and Assake's found the clue of the door. Sooner or later, Griffith won't be able to resist. He yearns for such an ideal country. Do you yearn for it? Boss Luo suddenly looked at her and asked softly, Lady Nan? Lady Nan opened her mouth and said unexpectedly, No one can refuse such an ideal country, right? There's indeed an ideal country in this world. What? Griffith, he will find this ideal place. Boss Luo smiled mysteriously at this time. Lady Nan rubbed her bangs more fiercely and asked tentatively, Is it written like this on the pages? He's back, Boss Luo said slowly and looked at the entrance of the secret passage. Nan Xiaonan was dazed and looked over. When she turned around, Boss Luo was already gone. So difficult. Lady Nan sighed subconsciously. Is the boss requirement for Black Soul so high? Then how did the Black Soul envoys before him pass the test? Could it be that each and every one of them was a genius? This Miss Demonis of the other world's academic faction was indeed dealt a heavy blow at this moment. A rumbling sound came. It was the sound of the stone door of the secret passage beginning to move. Miss Nan took a deep breath, and 2 drops of tears flowed out directly. Saliva couldn't do it. Griffith could probably tell, so she had to cry for real. She felt it was too difficult for her, so she really cried. Griffith came back with some food and water. Yulia ate it wholeheartedly. While eating, she stared at Griffith's every move with vigilance. Tell me about your hometown, Griffith said indifferently. I lied to you, there's no such thing as a different world. Yulia said quickly, I'll tell you the truth, I can't make it up. You're very fickle. Griffith smiled faintly. Maybe you're lying. It's hard to tell the truth from the lies. Yulia remained silent for a while and then asked tentatively, If you find out that I'm lying to you, what will you do? You should be able to give me a full meal, Griffith said casually. As long as the people of the Holy Church don't leave and take you with them, I'll be in more danger. Yulia's face turned gloomy. Can you help me find Father Norsta? I didn't know it was him who asked you to lead me to the dungeon. If I knew this, I would have gone in. Since you can help him lead me to the dungeon, your relationship with him should be. Let's talk about it later. Griffith said expressionlessly, There are people of the Holy Church outside. If you act rashly, you'll only bring danger to yourself. That's the only way. Yulia sighed. At this moment, Griffith moved again and went out to inquire about the situation. Yulia could use this time to escape from the biology lab. She realized that Griffith didn't lock the secret tunnel this time. However, since her boss gave her a hint, her boss seemed to be implying that she could stay beside Griffith. I should run away. He didn't lock the secret tunnel on purpose so that she could escape. I'm now Yulia from another world. She got into character within a second. The airship above the City of God's protection suddenly released a small transport ship. It slowly landed on the lawn where a God-blessed church used to be. At the same time, a group of warriors from the Holy Church rushed over. The hatch of the transport ship opened, and a group of warriors wearing black armor and helmets slowly walked out. Their black armor was different from the black armor of the vampires. Their black armor was bigger, and the carvings were more ferocious. They looked like evil spirits. "Which unit are you from? How come I've never seen you before?" The leader of the small group of warriors looked at the warriors in black armor in confusion. He didn't receive any reports about this unit. They walked out of the airship. Just as all the warriors in black armor walked out, an old man in a wheelchair appeared at the entrance of the cabin. The leader of the small group of warriors was shocked when he saw the old man's face. He knelt down without thinking and said, "You? Why did you?" The old man in the wheelchair didn't say anything, and a warrior in black armor pushed him forward. The leader of the small group of warriors and the rest of the warriors from the Holy Church were gasping for breath. When the warrior in black armor who pushed the old man passed by them, he said calmly, "Continue with your original mission." "Yes. Yes, sir." The leader of the small group of warriors didn't dare to hesitate. This old man on the wheelchair was, only after the old man and the group of warriors in black armor had all entered the castle did the members of this small group of warriors dare to stand up. They looked at the leader of their own small group. The leader of the small group of warriors could only smile bitterly and say, "Don't look at me. You heard what I said just now. Just mind your own business. We don't know anything else." "I didn't expect the Pope to come in person." A member of the small group couldn't help but say in fear, "I wonder if Lady Isabel knows about this." If Lady Isabel didn't know about what happened to the Pope in the airship, then this matter was far beyond what they could bear. "Master! I can walk on my own. Marianne, you're finally awake." In the long passage, Essex didn't put down Marianne, who had just woken up. "How's your wound? Still not healing?" "It's healing, but it's very slow." The maid Marianne shook her head. "I'm sorry to let you see me like this." "You saved me, Marianne," Mr. Essex said seriously. "You've done very well. Don't blame yourself." Alan, who was scouting ahead, said at this time, "We're already very deep underground. This passage actually hasn't reached the end. It should be soon." Mr. Essex thought for a while and said, "I smell something bad." "What's that smell?" Lily asked nervously. "The smell of fire." Mr. Essex frowned. "There's even a strong heat source in front." Not long after, they left the passage. In front of them was a suspension bridge made of iron chains. Under the suspension bridge, magma was flowing slowly. At the end of the suspension bridge, they saw a trapezoidal pyramid, like an island, standing alone in the magma pool. "It seems that we've reached our destination." Mr. Allen was shocked by the scene in front of him and sighed, "I didn't expect such a majestic building to be hidden deep underground." At this time, Mr. Essex put down Marianne. "I'll go ahead and have a look." After saying that, Mr. Arthas directly jumped into the suspension bridge, and then slowly walked towards the pyramid. The blazing aura completely distorted his back. At this moment, two huge fire pillars directly rushed out of the magma pool. With the appearance of the fire pillars, two flames suddenly emerged from the magma pool and stood up. The two flame giants were like the guards of the pyramid. They instantly swung their palms at Arthas, who was on the suspension bridge. Mr. Assash's face changed slightly, and he didn't move forward but retreated directly back to the starting point. The two flame giants didn't chase after him, but just stood quietly at the end of the suspension bridge. "It seems that if we want to go in, we can only fight these two big guys." Mr. Essex couldn't help but frown. "What kind of monsters are they?" Alan was scared and nervous at this time. "I've never heard of them." At present, there are a total of 796 kinds of monsters on the ground. Mr. Essex quickly said at this time, But these two flame giants are not among the 796 kinds of monsters. And, so far, no monsters that can survive in the magma have been found. When these two flame giants attacked me just now, I could feel that they are not living creatures. Not living creatures? Then what is it? It's like a special power. Mr. Asakes muttered. Flame giants are more like the creatures in the illusion. Maybe they are actually created by an all-essence. Are you sure? Mr. Allen asked eagerly, even forgetting to use honorifics. Mr. Asakes pointed to the top of the pyramid. See, the mark on the pyramid, the mark of the top secret file of the God-blessed church. Mr. Allen was silent for a long time, and then suddenly said, In fact, there was such a mark on the box I got from the dying tramp. So, Sir Count, your guess may be right. Here, if there is no all-essence, there must be a close relationship with all-essence. Suddenly, Mr. Asakes grabbed the back of Alan's collar and lifted him directly. What are you doing? Alan was shocked. Don't be nervous, it's just an experiment. Mr. Asakes chuckled and said, You have the residual power of all essence. If these two flames are also created by all essence, that is to say, the power between you is of the same origin, they may not attack you. This is unfounded. Alan suddenly exclaimed, You can't do this. However, he had already been thrown out by Arthaces, and that was not all. Arthaces jumped up and stood on top of Alan, who was thrown out, and rushed over with his imperial kinesis skill. #########PS 211. Chapter 2298. The Imperial Sword. No, the Imperial Person technique was successfully activated. Mr. Asashes's speed +3, directly colliding with the two flame giant. Alan was so desperate that he forgot to scream. He helplessly watched the two flame giants grow bigger and bigger in front of his eyes. He was about to crash into one of the flame giants. However, at this time, the result that Mr. Asakes had guessed did not appear. The two flame giants twisted their bodies again, waved their palms, and lined up Mr. Asakes and Alan, who were as small as flies. At this moment, Mr. Asakes suddenly exerted force and directly stepped on Alan, while his body was forcibly raised again in a way that even the coffin lid of gravity could not hold down. Alan fell onto the metal suspension bridge in an instant, but because of inertia, he continued to slide forward. Asakes passed through the hands of the two flame giants, and then landed on the sliding Alan again. Mr. Allen let out a miserable cry at this time. They had stopped in the middle of the suspension bridge. Of course, it was not caused by some kind of gland breaking in front. It was because the bridge was extremely hot. At this time, Alan was sliding close to the bridge, his whole body on fire. He rolled on the bridge crazily in order to extinguish the red flames on his clothes. However, Mr. Asakes suddenly jumped up again at this time. He actually took advantage of this gap and jumped to the back of one of the flame giant's neck. Mr. Asakes punched the back of the flame giant's neck. His entire arm was covered with a demonic red light, and it actually sank into the back of the flame giant's neck. With a deep shout, Mr. Asakes struggled to pull his arm out of the back of the flame giant's neck. At the same time, the flame giant's body actually dissolved in an instant, directly melting into the magma pool below, causing the magma pool to set off billowing waves. When there was only one flame giant left, Mr. Asakes did the same again and easily dissolved the second flame giant. He fell onto the suspension bridge. At this time, Alan had already extinguished the flames on his body. He was dirty, and looked at the cold and ruthless Rose Countess in front of him in shock and anger. Have you seen these things before? Mr. Asakes directly opened his palm. In the center of his palm, there were two irregular crystals, shining brightly. No, I haven't. Alan shook his head. It seems that this is the so-called 10,000 element. Asakes said indifferently, It is the thing that erodes your body. Mr. Allen couldn't help but be terrified. He immediately put away his dissatisfied thoughts and muttered, "How do you know that their weakness is at the back of their neck? Observe, perceive, and guess." However, this Rose Countess gave an extremely mysterious answer. Mr. Allen frowned and said nothing. Perception. Could it be that Rose Countess, as a vampire, had an especially powerful perception ability? According to him, unlike the half-finished black-armored warriors in the castle, real vampires had all kinds of strange abilities, also known as talent. Unexpectedly, the flames did not appear again. The two of them waited on the bridge for a moment before Arthaces signaled for Kulili and Marion, who were at the bridgehead, to come over. After some time, they finally succeeded in crossing the suspension bridge. However, at this time, Asax threw one of the two crystals in his hand into the magma pool. "Boss, you are..." Lily looked at him in astonishment. "Doing an experiment." Asax chuckled and said, "In addition, maybe I can leave some gifts for the people who come later." He silently observed the changes after the crystal was thrown into the magma pool. He saw that after the crystal was thrown into the magma pool, a huge whirlpool quickly appeared in the magma pool, and in this whirlpool of magma, a giant arm instantly stretched out. "Come, let's go in." Mr. Asax seemed to have seen what he wanted to see. He reached out his hand to protect Lily and retreated. It was a pyramid standing in the middle of the magma pool. Griffith said that the secret passage in this mezzanine only led to a few fixed places. One of the places was blocked, and the only way left was to the library and the Pope's Hall. She decided to go to the library. Maybe she could find something in the library. Well, she did not know which path led to the library. She just took a random path. Even if she was exposed and met the warriors of the Holy See, she was at least a human. Wouldn't it be safer to fall into the hands of the warriors of the Holy See than to fall into the hands of Griffith? At this time, she had already arrived in front of a wall with a mechanism. According to the method that she secretly memorized, Griffith's method of opening the mechanism, Yulia successfully made the wall move. Her whole body tensed up, ready to face any situation that could happen at any time. However, no danger appeared until the wall turned 90 degrees. Yulia leaned out in front of her. There was no library. It was clearly an empty secret room. And at the stone platform in the middle of the secret room, there was a figure sitting there, looking straight at her. "Say, Senior? Hi, newcomer." In the secret room, they confirmed that it was the right person. Yulia shuddered. She quickly closed the mechanism on the wall and walked to Madanzo's side. She saw that Madanzo's expression was not as relaxed as when she greeted her. Seeing that it was really Yulia, Madanzo slowly opened her mouth and said, "I'm here because..." At this time, Yulia blinked her eyes and hinted at something. Then, she directly said, "Why are you here? Didn't I ask you to hide? What if you are discovered?" Madanzo could not help but open her mouth. "What is this girl doing?" "That thing, did you get it?" Yulia quickly asked again. Madanzo could not help but blink. Under Yulia's nervous gaze, she slowly said, "I haven't found the thing yet. I've been hiding quietly. When I found this place, I didn't expect there to be nothing here. It seems like that guy is more secretive than we thought." Seeing Yulia's expression relax, Madanzo knew that she had succeeded in answering this question. "That bastard Arthaces has always been extremely cunning." Yulia nodded. "It's impossible for us to find the key in his hand so easily." Although he knew that Yulia might be worried about something and was weaving something, 11 was still a bit confused. Yulia quickly said, "I was exposed. I was caught by a guy called Griffith. He already knows my identity. But don't worry, I won't tell anyone that you are with us. There were actually 4 people who came to this alien world because of the relics." "Who is Griffith? Relics? Alien world? Who am I? Where am I? What am I listening to?" "You actually said it out loud." Madanzo suddenly jumped up and excitedly grabbed Yulia's arms. "How could you do this? Have you forgotten what we talked about before? Yulia continued blinking and hinting crazily as if to say, You've passed, you've passed. I had no choice. That guy was too careful. Yulia sighed. If I didn't tell you the secret, I'm afraid that I would be a corpse now. Then you escaped? Madanzo thought for a moment and said. Yulia quickly nodded. Yes. Let's talk while walking. Is it safe here? Madanzo said. This is a secret room in the library, but it has been discovered by the people of the Holy Church. Later, a group of guys wearing black armor and an old man in a wheelchair came here. They seemed to be transporting something out of here. I was afraid that I would be exposed, so I didn't take a good look. After the old man left, he also called the people who were guarding here away, so there shouldn't be anyone outside. Really? Yulia nodded. Let's go. We need to think of a plan. My key was stolen by Griffith, so we must think of a way to get it back from him. Come with me, Madanzo replied. The two of them quickly left the secret room. Not long after, the wall slowly moved and a black figure slowly emerged from the darkness. He walked into the secret room with a serious expression and looked in the direction that Madanzo and Yulia left. The otherworldly incident. It's actually true. That thing. Could it be the key in Rose Countess' hand? Yulia didn't tell the truth completely. There's a fourth otherworlder. Could it be that it wasn't Norsta's intention to steal the key from Rose Countess? This Yulia wanted to steal the key herself? Not only Rose Countess, maybe. She also wanted to steal Norsta's key secretly. She probably didn't want them, who had become vampires, to return to their homeland. Everything can be explained. There was indeed no one in the library, but there was still a warrior of the Holy See standing guard outside the library. Madanzo secretly tore a piece of paper from the desk and quickly wrote a few words, stuffing it into Yulia's hand. It was only a short line. The male lead was taken away by the old man. Madanzo said with a serious expression, I heard that Rose Countess isn't dead yet. In the depths of the hall, a deep pit was exposed due to the attack of the giant cannon. There are also traces of man-made excavation. Yulia said, the key is very important. Asax wants to go home even in his dreams. Otherwise, he wouldn't have spent so much effort investigating all these years. 15 years. Look at this room full of information. He probably wouldn't hide the key. He would always carry such an important thing with him. Madanzo thought for a moment and smiled bitterly. Unfortunately, there's nothing we can do. Vampires are too dangerous for us. As for those soldiers from the Vatican, they're fully armed. This is hell level. Let's not talk about the distant ones. There's also a person guarding outside. Even getting out is a problem. Maybe we can make use of Griffith. Yulia thought for a moment and said, he doesn't know about your existence. In my opinion, he probably wants to get his hands on the key. I can pretend to obey him and gain his trust. This method is too dangerous. Madanzo shook her head. Yulia grabbed her hair and swept the things on the table to the ground in frustration. Then tell me, what else can we do? If my key wasn't taken away by him, we still have a chance. But now, tell me. Calm down. Madanzo hugged her quickly. Calm down. You have to stay calm at this time. How can I calm down? Yulia burst into tears and fell to the ground. She covered her face and said, I just want to go home. I don't want to stay in this damned place anymore. Why did we come out to take risks? Why did we enter the ruins? Why? Are you feeling better? Metatro patted her shoulder lightly. How long have you escaped? Could it be that the person who captured you has discovered that you escaped? He went to find out the situation. Yulia sobbed and said, he shouldn't be back so soon. Wait, we should destroy the mechanism in the secret tunnel first. Let's go. Madanzo nodded. At this moment, the light seemed to distort, and a slender figure slowly appeared in front of the two of them. It was an incomparably handsome face. The newcomer chuckled and said, "Don't bother. G. Griffith." Yulia's face instantly turned pale as she widened her eyes in disbelief. Her eyes were filled with fear and despair. How did you? Madanzo suddenly picked up a pen and stabbed it toward Griffith. But Griffith waved his hand and sent Metatro flying. Metatro crashed into a bookshelf, and the bookshelf fell to the ground. "Who's there, Dash?" At the same time, the soldier of the Holy Church who was guarding the door heard the noise and broke into the room. A murderous spirit flashed in Griffith's eyes. He dropped the sword at his waist and pierced the throat of the guard, nailing him to the door. Life extinguisher. Now, no one is guarding here. Griffith walked up to Yulia with a faint smile on his face and squatted down in front of her. So. He reached out and lifted the chin of Yulia, who was in a panic. Squinting his eyes, he said, "Ms. Yulia, what are you going to do with me?" Yulia opened her mouth subconsciously, as if she was scared silly. "Ms. Isabel, we found a lava pool in the front, and a huge tower-shaped building can be seen in the center." At the end of the tunnel, waves of heat surged. With a frown, Isabel pushed aside the subordinate who was reporting to her and walked out of the tunnel. Then, she saw a huge pyramid at the end of the suspension bridge with red light shining in front of her. Found it. Looking at the mark on the pyramid, Isabel couldn't help but smile. "What's that, Dash?" At this moment, a huge figure suddenly stood up from the churning magma pool. "What's this?" It was a cliff. They walked out of a cave behind the cliff. They were supposed to enter a trapezoidal pyramid. However, what appeared in front of them was blue sky, white clouds, and a vast and boundless land. Fertile land. Is this an illusion? Mr. Essex couldn't help but frown. However, the wind was so real and refreshing. ######PS1. Hehe, 520 PS2. Same as before. End of this chapter. Chapter 2299. Marianne grabbed a handful of soil from the ground and sniffed it. The soil here is so fertile. It's rare to see this outside. For Marianne, who had been living in the city of God's blessing, this was something that could only exist in the mouth of her ancestors. The outside world was desolate and filled with monsters. The earth was barren. Humans could only barely survive in the broken cities. That was why the last pure land of humans, Laputa, was so precious. Only the nobles had the right to go there. There are some buildings over there. Alan pointed at a forest in the distance. There seemed to be something hidden in the shadows of the trees. Mr. Essex pondered for a while and suddenly walked back to the exit of the cave. He used his fist to punch the edge of the cave. When the exit of the cave completely collapsed, he clapped his hands and said, "Let's go and take a look." "Master, I'll go explore," Marianne said quickly. "I'm almost recovered. There shouldn't be a problem." "Be careful." Mr. Essex nodded. Seeing the maid turn into a shadow and sneak away, Alan couldn't help but be amazed. Miss Marianne didn't seem to have appeared in the castle before. "She's here now," Essex replied indifferently. Then, he looked at K. Forehead Lily and said, "No matter what, don't leave my sight. Do you understand?" "Okay." K. Forehead Lily nodded. She wanted to say something but stopped. She actually had some questions that she wanted to ask Arthashes about Marianne's origin. However, the owner of the dungeon, Alan, was beside her. Mr. Essex seemed to be avoiding Alan's existence. K. Forehead Lily could only give up for now. They waited for a while, and were about to catch up with Marianne. However, a black shadow sneaked back. Marianne, who had just explored, appeared again and said with a serious expression, "Master, there's something in front." Lifelike human-shaped stone statues appeared in front of him in a chaotic manner, in a settlement in the middle of the forest. Weeds had covered more than half of the settlement, and most of the wooden houses had rotted away. The few of them walked among the statues, their expressions becoming increasingly solemn. "This place seems to be built by the God-blessing church. The clothes on these stone statues seemed to be the old-fashioned equipment of the warriors of the God-blessing church. Yes, this is the old equipment of the Holy See. Mr. Asakes took a deep breath and said, "These sculptures are not of the people who live here. They are former members of the Holy See." The sculptures were of warriors, a group of warriors who seemed to have encountered something terrifying and were running away in a hurry. All of the statues were facing the intruders. They were fleeing with terrified expressions on their faces. Many of them were even looking behind them. These are not statues, they are people. It was alive, but it ran into something and turned into a stone statue. Arthashes's sudden conclusion stunned everyone. A bone-chilling feeling crept up their spines. It was as if there was something terrifying in this bountiful land, instantly destroying the beauty of this moment. Silence. It was too quiet. There was no sound at all. In such a rich land, there was not even a small animal or insect. The settlement that they found was more like a sentry post that was set up by the God-blessed church. As they went deeper, they found more than 10 similar settlements. In the settlement, they found similar statues. Then it was still quiet. This gathering place seems a little different. It was almost the end of the forest, but the settlement they found here was much bigger than the previous ones. Not only were there buildings, but there were also some old vehicles of the God-blessing church. At this time, Moria came to a car with a big boiler. He suddenly opened the front cover of the car and looked at it. "Master, this car, maybe it can still be used." Asash's eyes suddenly brightened. He looked around and said, "Let's look in these buildings, maybe we can find some coal for burning. Marianne, see if you can fix the car." "Got it." Forehead Lily was surprised at this time. "Miss Marianne, you know how to fix these things?" Marianne said calmly, "Master's library has a lot of knowledge, I will take some to read when I am bored. There are some old equipment of the Holy See in the castle, and I have studied it a little. Miss Forehead Lily, do you want to come and help?" "I'd better go and find something." Forehead Lily shook her head subconsciously. Everyone split up and started to work. More than half an hour passed as they busied themselves. When Mr. Asakes came back, Alan and Forehead Lily had come back first. It seemed that they had found something. Marianne was working hard to repair the car. "What did you find?" Mr. Allen asked directly. At this time, Mr. Asakes was holding a book in his hand. He said slowly, "Good luck, I found a diary." "About here?" Alan's eyes brightened. Arthashis casually handed the diary to Alan, who hurriedly flipped through it. Asakes continued, "Our previous guess was right, everything here was indeed arranged by the Holy See. No, the last Pope Cicero. Every gathering point was actually a transit station for transporting resources. God bless the Holy See seems to have a research base behind that mountain. All the materials are transported there." Alan had already flipped through half of the diary. According to the diary, the owner of the diary had no idea what kind of research was being conducted at the research base. He was unable to reach the edge of the research. The closer he got to the base, the tighter the security became, and the higher the authority required. But there was something else written here. What was written? Marianne frowned. Alan muttered, "Earthquake." The diary mentioned an earthquake. In the last part, it wrote, "The number of earthquakes has increased recently. Another earthquake, many roads have been destroyed, we have temporarily lost communication with the Research Institute. Today there was no news. Someone is missing, missing?" Forehead Lily also frowned. "Did you find it?" Alan shook his head. "It didn't write after that. Or rather, it didn't have time to write it." He flipped to the last page of the diary and held it up in front of everyone. There was only one unwritten word on the paper, and it stopped abruptly. Something happened to the owner of the diary. Marianne said in a low voice, "Maybe it has something to do with this disaster." She looked at the stone statues around her, who were in a hurry to escape. Her meaning was clear. Mr. Asakes also said, Outside the house where this diary was found, there was a statue on the ground. Maybe it was the owner of this diary. Silence, silence, silence. Mr. Asake sighed slowly and broke the silence. Marianne, can you fix the car? It should be fine, give me some more time. I'll look around and see if there are any other clues. You two rest here for now, Mr. Asake said seriously. Marianne, when I'm not here, protect K. Forehead Lily. Bang dash! The stone exploded, and the sealed exit of the cave was opened instantly. Several soldiers of the Holy Church rushed out with weapons in their hand. They guarded the exit of the cave while looking around. The target is safe. At this time, Isabel walked out of the cave. She looked a little tired, and there were some burn marks on her light armor. The young knight, Nero, checked the entrance of the cave and said, Ms. Isabel, these stones should be newly dropped. Don't think about it. Only that guy would play these pranks. Isabel shook her head. Asakes always likes to play tricks on others. Humph, he never changes. Always? Nero heard the complicated meaning in the woman's words, but he didn't ask further. Instead, he looked at the brand new world in front of him with shock on his face. Ms. Isabel, this place? The land of origin. Isabel pointed to the front. The real treasure of the God-blessed church is there. Let's go, we'll see it soon. Attention, everyone. Check all your equipment and move out immediately. Nero instantly ordered everyone. Stop dash. A soldier in black armor suddenly raised his hand. Several soldiers in black armor walked out of the tunnel and returned. Sir, there are traces of a fierce battle ahead and 6 burned bodies, and a suspension bridge, but it's broken. The leading soldier in black armor looked at the old man in the wheelchair. The old man slowly opened his eyes. It should be the fire element. They didn't find Isabel's body, which means they entered successfully. Kane, repair the suspension bridge. The fire element should be defeated. Nero has the ability to do it. The leader of the soldiers in black armor, the man named Kane, nodded silently. The old man in the wheelchair looked at the huge coffin behind him. There were the things he took out from the secret room in the library. Finally, we're back to this place. Are we really going down? At the edge of the deep pit in the palace, Madanzo stopped looking around and looked hesitant. There were more than a dozen bodies of the God-blessed church's soldiers. Griffith only took a few breaths to kill them. However, there were still many soldiers of the church in the castle, and she believed that what happened here would be exposed soon. Obviously, Griffith didn't plan to fight the church's army head-on. Since Countess Rose is down there, the mastermind of the church's operation should be down there too. Griffith said calmly, If Countess Rose is killed or captured by the church, I'm afraid you'll never find the key again. At this moment, Yulia and Madanzo looked at each other. Madanzo, my goodness, did you trick this guy? Yulia, I'm working very hard, okay? Madanzo, are we really going down there? Yulia, what else can we do? Even the male lead was taken down there? Griffith suddenly joined the group chat. What are you guys talking about? Madanzo and Yulia were shocked. Yulia said calmly, I think it's better to take Norsta's key than Asash's key. Griffith, why don't you bring me to my adoptive father, Norsta? No need. Griffith shook his head and picked up Yulia and Metatro, one in each hand, as if he was picking up chick. Then, he jumped into the deep pit. Norsta was dead. He killed him. In the campsite. K.R. Lily sat beside the car repair station quietly. Marianne didn't even look at her. At this moment, Mr. Allen walked over with 2 water bottles in his hands. There's a water source behind the campsite. The water should be fine. Allen placed a water bottle in front of K.R. Lily. As for food, we haven't found it yet. Lily, on the other hand, felt thirsty. She silently took the flask, but did not drink it immediately. Mr. Allen sat down. Don't worry. It's not poisonous. If I hurt you in this environment, I'll be asking for trouble. The Count values you a lot, doesn't he? K.R. Lily looked at Allen expressionlessly. Mr. Allen said, It's fine if you hate me. After all, I did use you before. But I just want to live. If I didn't find a way to alarm Count Rose, we would have died at Norsta's hands. Kay Lily was silent. However, at this moment, Marian suddenly appeared in front of the two of them. What's wrong? Kay Lily asked. Shoo! At this time, Marian said in a low voice, something is approaching. The Count is back? Alan asked hesitantly. Something else, Marian said quickly. Mr. Allen hurriedly got up and pulled out an exquisite dagger from his waist. At this moment, Marian's gaze moved around the camp. In the forest, there was a black shadow that was moving quickly. The three of them focused their eyes and quickly leaned against each other. In the silence, the sound of flying in the forest became more and more obvious. At this moment, Marianne pushed Kay Lily away. At the same time, a black shadow flew out. Bang! The campsite was instantly smashed into a pit. The three of them scattered and rolled out. When they saw the thing that pounced out, Kay Lily couldn't help but gasp. It was about 2 meters tall and at least 5 meters long. It looked like a wolf. However, half of its body was skeletonized and 4 scarlet eyes. Monster! Mr. Allen couldn't help but exclaim, "There are monsters here." Monsters? No. At this time, Lily wanted to cry out in alarm. The monster in front of her gave her the feeling that it was the emissary that she faced in the previous world as a pilot. On the chest of the demonic wolf-like monster, there was a fist-sized hole. Hashtag PS. 3/11. Chapter 2300. Messenger. It was indeed the messenger that Kay Lily knew. However, for some reason, the wolf-shaped messenger that appeared in the camp seemed much weaker than the messengers that could bring disasters in the last world. Even when she sat in the cockpit of the God-Eater, she would still tremble in fear. However, the wolf-shaped messenger, before her at least, she didn't feel despair or fear. Even so, the wolf-shaped messenger wasn't something that she could fight against. Without the powerful God-Eater, the few combat skills that she had were insignificant. The people here are all petrified. Is it related to this demon? Mr. Allen was still calm, and he quickly analyzed the situation. He had seen many demons in the wilderness outside the city of God's blessing. However, with enough weapons and manpower, even humans who didn't have the supernatural power of vampires could kill demons. I don't know if it's related, but I'm sure that it's not easy to deal with. At this time, Marian said with a dignified expression, "Miss Lily, please stand behind me. If you're too far away, I'm afraid I won't be able to take care of you. There's more than one monster." What do you mean? Mr. Allen was surprised. This camp has already been surrounded. At this moment, Marian said something shocking. Surrounded? Mr. Allen looked around in horror, only to see that pairs of scarlet eyes had appeared in the shadows of the forest outside the camp at some point in time. Then, horrifying wolf-shaped demons slowly walked out. He couldn't count them, but there were at least 30 of them. What should he do? Mr. Allen's mind went blank. However, at this moment, the first wolf-shaped demon lunged at him again. Marianne gritted her teeth and a dagger appeared in her hand. Holding it upside down, she was about to counterattack. In the blink of an eye, a figure appeared before the three of them. This figure grabbed the wolf-shaped demon's forelimbs with both hands, and they began to wrestle with each other. "Sir! Master! Am I already so popular?" The one who was wrestling with the wolf-shaped monster was none other than Asax, who had gone out to investigate. However, there was a ghastly claw mark on Asash's back. "Your injury?" Kay Forehead Lily was instantly shocked. "I met a fellow on the way and fought with him," Mr. Asax quickly said. At the same time, he shouted and directly flipped the wolf-shaped monster in front of him to the ground. At this time, his eyes were crimson red, and his blood-sucking fangs were exposed. A crazy bloodthirsty aura surged and seemed to have shocked the wolf-like demons around the camp. However, the wolf-shaped monster roared, as if it was ready to attack at any moment. "The car isn't fixed yet?" "Almost there. Almost there," Marianne said quickly. Asake said directly, "I'll try my best. Move faster." Marianne nodded. With a leap, she jumped onto the car. Seeing this, Asake suddenly screamed and attracted the attention of all the wolf-shaped monsters. At this time, he directly jumped into the pack of wolves. "Come on, let's see if your claws are sharper or my fangs are sharper." A bloody battle. These wolf-shaped monsters were not inferior to Asake's in speed, and their hair was as hard as steel. In just a moment, Asash's body was covered with wounds. As for his record, he had only taken down 4 wolf-type demons. The main reason was that there were too many of them. "Marianne, how much longer?" In an instant, the sound of the engine roared and Marianne shouted, "Master, it's fixed! Go!" Asake instantly shouted and took the opportunity to grab the tail of a wolf-shaped monster. He directly swung it up to create an opportunity for everyone and forcibly swept out a path. The car driven by the steam power directly rushed out at this time. Asake brought up the rear and took out the crystal dug out from the neck of the flame giant. He held the crystal high, and then a fierce magma flow instantly appeared out of thin air and directly flooded the entire petrified camp. The fire soared into the sky, and the wolf-shaped monsters were trapped in the magma-filled camp at this time, making miserable howls. Mr. Athanasius finally caught up with the speeding car and gasped for breath. "How did you do it?" At this time, Aaron stared at Asake in disbelief. He saw that Asake took out the crystal. Asake directly took back the crystal in his hand and said indifferently, "Haven't you already guessed it? All essence. It's really all essence. Something out of nothing. My God. This is actually true. It's not as magical as you think." Asake shook his head. "This thing seems to only be able to summon magma. I just discovered it not long ago. Other than that, it won't change anything else, and even if it can change magma, it will be quite brain-intensive." "Brain-intensive? I'm talking about spirit." Asake shook his head. "I'm dizzy now, and I don't feel good. This thing is not free, it can devour people's spirit." "Spirit? Spirit power?" Aaron pondered and said, "But people's spirit can be recovered. If the balance between the two sides is maintained, isn't it equal to having unlimited resources? Can your spirit be recovered, or is it permanently gone?" "It's recovering, and I feel better now." Asake thought for a while and said, "But this thing is too evil. Before I understand its nature, I will try not to use it again. Marianne, we should be driving to the base on the other side of the mountain now, right?" "It should be this route," Marianne quickly said. "We can see the outline of another camp in front. Master, do you need to stop and rest in front?" "No need, just keep driving like this, as far as we can go." Asake thought for a while and said, "I don't know if we will encounter such ferocious big guys again. Pay attention to the formation. Pay attention to the formation. Don't attack randomly. Cooperate with Lord Nero." The elite warriors of the church were currently dealing with the situation in a fluster. A group of terrifying fellows had suddenly appeared in front of them, and instantly took away the lives of several warriors. Isabel was now completely protected. However, her expression did not look too good, obviously not expecting to encounter such danger. If such terrifying creatures appeared along the way, there would be more twists and turns. "What kind of demon is this? I've never seen it before. Its skin is harder than steel." There were too many of them, all around them. One by one, they wrapped around the tree trunks in the forest, like caterpillars magnified thousands of times, but with centipede-like heads, and could even spit out terrifying corrosive liquid. "Fire." Isabel took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "Set fire, burn this forest." She saw that the forest in front of them was already on fire. She expected that only Asake, who was walking in front, could do such a thing. "Fire!" Use fire. The warriors of the Holy See immediately started the fire. A humanoid monster with long black hair slowly fell at the feet of a black-armored warrior. At this moment, the weapon in the black-armored warrior's hand pierced into a strange round hole behind the head of the long-haired monster. This was a fatal blow. The black-armored warrior named Cain pushed the old man and slowly came to the side of the long-haired monster. The old man gestured for someone to turn the monster's body over, and after a few glances, he said slowly, "Their weak points are all in this round hole. As long as you find their weak points, it's not hard to kill them. With your abilities, the things here are no match for you." "What exactly is this thing?" Cain asked calmly. "It doesn't look like a demon." "They were once humans," the old man said slowly, "but they lost their hearts." "Hearts?" "Dreams, ideals, beliefs, everything is precious in the hearts of people." The old man's face became more and more pale, and he even coughed a few times, as if he would die at any moment. It was not until Cain took out a syringe and injected something into the old man's body that the old man finally recovered. "There's no time, there's no time." The old man's breath was weak, but he raised his trembling hand and pointed forward. "It seems that someone has already arrived here." Griffith looked around with a solemn expression. This place was rich and fertile, unprecedentedly rich and fertile. It was like an undeveloped virgin land, a brand new world that had not been destroyed. However, that was not the case. There seemed to be some kind of danger hidden here. Griffith could not say, it was just a feeling. However, the strange human bodies and stone statues that he saw along the way seemed to be proving his feeling. He even had the thought of retreating. At this moment, Yulia and Madanzo were squatting beside the body of a monster covered in long black hair, seemingly studying something. "You too recognize this thing?" Griffith asked with a frown. Yulia shook her head. "No, but I'm curious, more research, you won't lose out. You must have the spirit of research, understand? Why is your world so backward? It's because you people don't know how to use your brains, develop productivity, and solve problems with your fists." Griffith said calmly, "There's nothing wrong with relying on your fists, it's the most convenient and easiest way to achieve your goals." "What kind of goals can you have?" Yulia could not help but ask curiously. She had already figured out this guy's character. As long as Griffith still wanted to enter the other world, he would not make things difficult for her. "It's none of your business," Griffith said expressionlessly. "If you can't figure it out, then let's go. Don't waste time on the road." Yulia and Madanzo exchanged glances. Madanzo wiped her hands that were stained with the blood of the long-haired monster and said calmly, "That's enough. Unless we have more specimens, there is no research value." The car quickly drove into a huge canyon. The front was swallowed by darkness, however. This was the only road that the car could pass through. Along the way, they did not encounter any terrifying creatures. Asash's spirit seemed to have almost recovered. At the same time, as they went deeper into the canyon, the number of petrified human bodies they encountered gradually increased. Finally, they arrived at the depths of the canyon. The ground and the rock walls here were full of cracks. This place was no longer dark, but a faint blue light was emitted from the cracks. Moreover, the more they went forward, the more intense this light seemed to be. Alan subconsciously reached out to touch the cracks on the rock wall. The moment his palm approached, he saw ripples flowing through the cracks. "I have never seen this kind of landform before. Unbelievable, there is a very powerful force flowing through these cracks." Asash's face was incomparably solemn. He could not even describe how powerful this force was. They were calm, as if they had fallen into a deep sleep. They were also terrifying. Once they erupted, the consequences would be unimaginable. Moreover, the ripples flowing through the cracks were all flowing in the same direction, as if they were transporting something. They were like cables that were transmitting an endless stream of energy to something. "Master, look." They had reached the end of the canyon. A towering rock wall blocked their way, however. The road was clear because at the bottom of the rock wall, there was a huge stone door that had been opened. The car slowly drove into the stone gate. Inside the stone gate, countless light blue fluorescent lights floated in the air. Suddenly, strange images appeared in front of everyone's eyes. The sea stretched as far as the eye could see. In the sea, the first life was born. In the sea, the species of creatures began to increase gradually, and they were evolving. Finally, a small thing walked on land for the first time. The fire of civilization was quietly ignited here. Countless illusions surged, and they, who were on the car, were instantly submerged in the aura of this ancient civilization. Their spirits and souls seemed to have experienced an incredible journey through time and space. They seemed to have seen a white tiger with wings roaring at the sky. Then, they seemed to see a huge golden figure hovering in the sky, shaking the heavens and earth. On the ground, a blue giant raised his arms and shouted. Suddenly, a huge black ball appeared in the sky, bringing with it a long black robe. However, a long sword suddenly pierced through the darkness and rushed to the edge of the sky. Suddenly, there was a shock, and their bodies fell forward due to inertia. All the illusions burst like bubbles. The car had crashed into a metal door at this time. "Boss, are you crying?" Kayer Lily's voice rang out. She subconsciously touched her face, and there were also traces of tears. Mr. Asakes murmured at this time, "Do you see the origin of life? Hashtag 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 PS. As usual. This chapter ends. Chapter 2301. They didn't dare to open the metal door in front of them directly. Instead, they stopped in front of the door as if there was a taboo force that covered their curiosity. Although the illusion of civilization had disappeared, the mark of civilization seemed to have been branded and couldn't be erased. It was as if the whispers of civilization were still lingering in Arthashes's ears. That was a way of the birth of civilization that was beyond his understanding. How were the people of the Holy Light Kingdom born? The people of the Holy Light Kingdom were born from faith. They came from His will, and they would definitely return to His arms. However, the passage of the illusion of civilization completely broke some of Asashes's existing concept. However, his understanding had actually long since been shattered by the bizarre things that had happened to him one after another. It had been shattered into pieces. "I can't explain my feelings at this time." Asakes took a deep breath and looked at the three people in front of him. "I believe that you have the same feelings as me." They didn't speak, and the shock in their hearts hadn't calmed down yet. "Behind this door, there may be something that is beyond your understanding," Asakes said slowly. "I don't know if I should open it or not. Now, I'll leave this decision to you." "What about you?" Alan asked subconsciously. Asakes said firmly, "I will go in, but you can choose to stay. There is no reason to stop at this point." Alan shook his head gently. "Unless you can solve my problem before you go in." Vampires couldn't resist blood, but Asakes couldn't find the interest to bite a man. He turned to look at Kayer Lily and Marianne. "Boss, you go in, I will go in too. I will go wherever Master goes." Then, Asakes nodded and pressed his hands on the metal door. However, at this time, a huge sense of crisis surged in his heart. Asakes dodged to the side almost instinctively, only to hear a loud sound. Something directly hit the metal door at this time. That thing directly broke and fell to the ground. It was an exquisite mithril longsword, the mithril weapon of God-blessed Church. Isabel. At the back of the passage, Isabel walked into everyone's sight under the protection of several church warriors. Asakes even saw the mixed blood Nero. The mithril sword was obviously thrown by this mixed blood with great strength. "Countess Rose, we meet again." Nero chuckled. "As expected, you didn't die. It was a very bad situation. The door hadn't been opened yet, but the danger had already come." Facing the warriors of the "Oh God bless the Church," Alan didn't seem to have much confidence. He could only wait and see. "Isabel, I didn't expect you to catch up so quickly." Essex could not help but have mixed feelings when facing Isabel, who was related to the Sage family and had some ties with him. In order to catch up to you, I lost a lot of men. Isabel sighed. I remember. Ever since we were young, you were always so hard to find when we played hide and seek. How many people did she bring with her? Now, there were only 5 warriors left to guard her. This included Nero, the most powerful warrior she had at her disposal. I forgot about what happened when I was young. Essex shook his head. Isabel didn't care and said calmly, Surrender, Essex. As long as I'm here, even if you're a vampire, I can guarantee that the church won't do anything to you. As long as you listen to me, I can satisfy you. Essex sneered. Isabel, you're openly supporting your enemy. Aren't you afraid that you'll disappoint your subordinates? Nero! Isabel suddenly shouted. The handsome young knight's figure flashed instantly. However, he didn't attack Essex. Instead, he flashed behind a warrior of the church. His palm directly pierced through the warrior's back. Nero, you. The remaining warriors were shocked. However, Nero was like the Grim Reaper. He didn't give these warriors any time to react, and his figure flashed continuously. In the blink of an eye, the remaining warriors were all pierced through by Nero and fell to the ground. After killing them, Nero returned to Isabel's side. Loyalty. On this mixed blood's face, Arthaces saw absolute loyalty and obedience. Isabel, what tricks are you playing now? Now, you don't have to be afraid of what my subordinates will say, right? Isabel laughed softly. Essex, can you remember what happened when you were young? Humph, you're a bad woman. Don't expect me to trust you. Essex snorted coldly. You clearly wanted to kill me when you fired that cannon at my castle. Idiot! Isabel suddenly shouted. I want to kill you? Think about it. Do I really want to kill you? If I wanted to kill you, why would I come at night? Why wouldn't I appear during the day when you're at your weakest? Because. Mr. Essex thought about it seriously. Could it be that you forgot to bring sunscreen when you went out today? F*CKU. F*CK. Isabel. Image. Pay attention to your image. Have you forgotten that you're the authoritative teacher of the sacred ritual class? Isabel heaved a sigh of relief and sneered. I take back what I said just now. Arthaces, I'll kill you now. Nero, kill this blabbermouth. He responded by drawing his sword. Mr. Arthaces immediately frowned. This damned woman, when did she become so unplayable? Wasn't she always good at playing? Countess Rose, continue the unfinished battle. No! A figure rushed out and blocked in front of Essex. It was K. Lily. Ms. Isabel, you and the boss are good friends. Please don't be like this. The maid of Rose Mansion said with a tearful tone. You are. Isabel's eyes flashed with a trace of doubt. She was stunned and said in surprise, You are the kid in the mansion? Ms. Isabel, it's me. Why are you? Isabel frowned. When did you? K. Lily didn't speak at this time. She just stared at Nero, who was coming with a sword and emitting endless killing intent. Isabel thought for a while. Nero, stop. Yes. Nero was like a ruthless killing machine. The horrible killing intent on his body disappeared in an instant. He slowly sheathed his sword and stood still. Essex, I need an explanation. Okay. Essex nodded. But just the two of us. K. Lily's matter, that's it. They went to the side, away from their own people, and stayed alone for some time. Essex was talking, and Isabel was listening. She kept frowning, and her expression kept changing. After a long time, Isabel sighed and said, So, the people who were swallowed by the black mud that day might be scattered in other worlds? I'm afraid so. Essex nodded. K. Lily wouldn't lie to me. She can come here, which means that there is a way to travel between different worlds. Isabel said in a low voice. Since she can travel between worlds, then she can also leave. Isabel, Do you still want to go back? Asakes stared at her eyes. Free city. She didn't answer this question. Instead, she asked in a low voice, You said that there was someone with K. Air Lily and Yulia, where is she? How would I know? Asakes said with an innocent face. I was blasted into the ground. I arranged for Yulia to rest in the castle. Who knows if she died under your attack? Isabel, that child was one of your proudest students back in school. Do you feel sad for your impulsive actions? I did not give the order to fire the main cannon. Isabel shook her head. It wasn't you? Let's not talk about this anymore. Isabel waved her hand. Whatever happens between you and me, that will happen after we leave this place. Right now, what I need to do is to get the item here. Asakes, I'll ask you one last time, do you want to stand on my side? Then answer a question of mine first, Arthaces asked slowly. D was indeed killed by me. She gave him the answer. Why? Isabel said indifferently. No reason. You should know my character. Since it's something that I can't get, I don't want others to get it, even if I have to destroy it. Asakes, I've been patient enough with you. You only have this mixed blood with you, right? Asakes chuckled. I'm a noble among the vampires. When I was granted the City of God blessing, I also got a drop of blood from the ancestor. Your knight may not be able to kill me. Then, what if I join? Isabel's eyes suddenly turned into a demonic blood-red color. What are you? Arthaces was shocked. At this moment, Isabel was releasing a violent and chaotic aura. He had only felt this aura from one person before. D. The strongest vampire hunter. Answer me. Isabel's beautiful hair even began to move without wind. Asakes frowned and relaxed. Finally, he sighed and said, If I can't defeat you, I can only join. Anyway, that's all. Boss. Master. Sir Earl. Asakes waved at the three and shook his head. From now on, we'll listen to that woman. Don't worry. I'm still useful. She'll treat me well. Kaer Lily was skeptical. All this while, she had heard the most about this Miss Isabel. It was all about how Arthaces and Ludic were complaining about how they had been swindled by Miss Isabel. At this moment, Nero walked directly to the metal door and put her hand on it. She glanced at Asakes, and Asakes also put his hand on the other side of the door. The two exerted their strength at the same time, and the dusty door was instantly pushed open. Isabel was now standing in the middle of the door, silently waiting for the door to open. It opened. A world of light instantly flooded their line of sight. When their vision adjusted, what appeared in front of them was a glowing forest. Many coral-like trees stood tall, and the entire forest was filled with an unbelievable aura of life. In this place, one could instantly clear away all the fatigue in one's body with just one breath. These coral-like trees had many irregular fruits. Asakes subconsciously took out the crystal that he had dug out from the flame giant's body. It was almost the same. The fruits on these trees are essence? Asakes was surprised. You also know about essence? Isabel looked at him suspiciously. Asakes shrugged. 15 years ago, your holy church was defeated, and you didn't take everything away. There must be some leftovers. But I don't know much. Every time we come here, there are so many essence, fruit. No wonder your holy church was willing to come down from Laputa this time. How many essence, fruits were there in this place? This wasn't a number that could be calculated in a short time. However, Isabel walked directly into the depths of the coral forest, as if she didn't see the essence, fruits on the coral-like trees. There's something more important in here? Asakes hurriedly walked to Isabel's side. He thought he already knew enough, but this bad woman seemed to know more than him. Essence or mother? At this time, Isabel said indifferently, with it we can create countless essence, fruits. In comparison, are the fruits in this forest still important? Can the Holy Church really create this kind of thing? Asakes couldn't help but doubt. With the technology of this world, wasn't this bullshit? Who told you that it was created by the Holy Church? Didn't the Holy Church build this research institute here? Isabel sneered. Build? No, you're wrong. They just found this place. Assakes, do you know the essence of essence? She stopped and stood under the biggest coral tree. The ground around here was cracked, and a large number of cracks were filled with blue light. The flow of energy was constantly flowing through these cracks and into the biggest coral tree. What is it? The foundation of this world. Isabel took a deep breath and said, the so-called essence or mother is formed by swallowing the origin of a world. It's like a transformation machine that can materialize people's imagination into reality. World transformation? Assakes was shocked. He felt the terrifying energy flowing from the ground to the huge coral tree, and he seemed to have thought of something. You're not wrong, this world is about to be sucked dry. Isabel said calmly, 15 years ago, the Holy Church was defeated, and they didn't take away the essence or mother in the end, not because they couldn't take it away, but because it hasn't fully matured. It needs to absorb the last bit of nutrients here. Now it's almost time. ############################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################### this chapter ends. Chapter 2302. It was as if they were under the illumination of the light of civilization. Hearing what Isabel said, everyone was shocked. Will it really suck the world dry? Essex looked at the huge coral tree in front of him in disbelief. There was no essence fruit on it, but it was the tallest and biggest one. It was different from the rest. At this moment Marianne, who was silent, sneered. Don't be alarmist. All the land we passed was rich and full of life. Isabel looked at the little female vampire coldly and said, When a lake starts to dry up, it always starts from the edge. Isn't the outside barren enough? What do you mean? Marian couldn't help but frown. Isabel ignored her. Instead, she looked at Arthaces and asked, Where do you think this is? Essex was stunned. He thought for a while and said, We came here through the pyramid deep underground. This should be another space. This is the world in the core of the earth. Isabel said, It is also the place where life really originated. Both humans and vampires were born here. It was only because of some accident that they came to the surface together. That's how the history of the Church of God came to be. That's impossible. Marian's understanding was completely shaken. However, after experiencing the illusion of the origin of civilization, she instinctively felt that Isabel was not lying. Because she could not accept something in such a civilization. The origin of life was natural. However, in the illusion of civilization, she clearly felt that there was a pair of hands that wantonly played with the progress of civilization. Just like the Creator, not only did it advance civilization, it even created more species. Where did you learn all this from? Arthaces took a deep breath. Of course, from the documents of the Church. Isabel said calmly, Why? Do you think only you can go back and collect all the knowledge? Essex frowned and said, I have collected all the documents I can find, but there is no clue about the origin of civilization. Even if I assume that the Church deliberately destroyed the records when they were defeated 15 years ago, it is impossible that there is nothing left. Isabel said, Of course you can't find it. This is the truth behind civilization that only a few people know. Even the Church can only pass it down orally. Essex was stunned. Such a secret, even if it is passed down orally, I'm afraid only the Pope can pass it down. Have you reached this point? You don't have to worry about that. Isabel shook her head. With that said, Isabel suddenly plucked a myriad element fruit from another coral tree and held it in her palm. They did not know what she wanted to do. But at this moment, a dining table appeared in front of Isabel out of thin air. There was even a sumptuous meal on the table. At this time, under everyone's surprised gaze, Isabel sat down, took a bottle of red wine, and poured herself a glass. The universal mother of Or is here. It should take some time before it settles to the bottom and ripens. Take whatever you want to eat. Everyone did not move, even if the food contained fresh blood that vampires needed. Isabel, on the other hand, enjoyed the delicious food on her own. How did you do it? Essex frowned. I also have a essence fruit here, but it can only create magma. Isabel cut the steak and said calmly, You dug it out from the fire elemental. Speaking of which, I really have to thank you. Essex smiled awkwardly. Isabel said, The essence, fruit in your hand has already been endowed with attribute, so it can only be transformed into the same thing in a fixed manner. These fruits here belong to no attribute, or it can be said that they have a blank attribute. The usage is very simple. Hold it and think about what you want. If you don't believe me, it doesn't matter if you try it yourself. Everyone exclaimed in disbelief. Essex thought for a while. He was the first to pluck a brand new essence fruit and held it in his palm. Soon, a human-shaped pillow appeared in front of him. Forehead lily human-shaped pillow. Boss, you. The little maid's face instantly darkened. Accident, accident. Arthaces immediately hid the pillow behind his back. This thing felt real to the touch, not an illusion. But at this time, his spirit seemed to be consumed a little. But it was quite weak and almost negligible. Seeing this, everyone also tentatively plucked all essence fruit each. With a thought, some small objects instantly appeared in front of them. Forehead Lily looked at the broom in her hand in surprise. This broom was exactly the same as the one she had always used in Rose Mansion in her memory. The moment it appeared, the girl even thought that this was the broom that belonged to her. At this time, a thin and sharp sword appeared in Marianne's hand. She was looking at the weapon in her hand excitedly and casually played with it a few times. At this time, Mr. Allen was holding a pair of scissors that looked like a tailor's and was silent. As for Nero, she was holding an ordinary marionette. Suddenly, something seemed to fall from above. Everyone looked up and saw a large number of objects falling down like a waterfall. In the blink of an eye, they had piled up more than 10 meters high. Models, sofas, hairdryers, comics, bicycles, baseball bats. They were all different and dazzling. This speed. Essex sighed in amazement at this time. Obviously, such a large number of things were created by him. But at the same time, the feeling of weakness when using the essence fruit to create a large amount of magma also came at the same time. He lightly shook his head and said with a bitter smile, This thing is simply like the devil's temptation. I can feel that a part of the spirit it devours should disappear permanently. But even so, you still can't help but use it. Because it's really too convenient. This is just the essence fruit. Isabel said coldly at this time, The fruit can create matter, and the Ore Mother can create countless fruits. Then, isn't having the Ore Mother equal to? Forehead Lily couldn't help but be shocked. Equal to having the whole world? Isabel said slowly, The Mother Lode can only mature after devouring an entire world. It itself is the condensation of a world. And what? Essex asked subconsciously. Isabel said, The essence. Fruit is only on the material level, but the Ore Mother is probably more than that. Essex vaguely thought of something. However, at this time, Nero's low voice had already sounded. Stop, what do you want to do? The young knight had already drawn his sword at this time. The sword was on Alan's shoulder. The owner of the dungeon of the City of God had already walked to the front of the huge coral tree. This huge coral tree had intertwined roots and intertwined joints. Just the trunk alone was no less than 30 meters in diameter. There seemed to be a hidden space within the dense tree roots and trunk. There was no essence fruit on the tree, but this was indeed the mother tree used to breed the essence or mother. Perhaps the Ore Mother would be in this coral tree. Alan wanted to go in. I just want to take a closer look. No one is allowed to go near without Isabel's order. Alan took a deep breath and looked at Isabel silently. He saw that Isabel didn't seem to care about this at all and was still enjoying the delicious food. "Alan, come back first," Asakes said at this time in a low voice. The owner of the dungeon shrugged. "As you wish, my lord Count." He really returned to Arthasia's side, but at this time, he looked at Isabel again and suddenly asked, "I once obtained a myriad element fruit from a remaining researcher of the Holy See. However, that fruit did not have the ability to transform, because the power of the fruit was exhausted." Isabel said casually, "Although an ordinary essence fruit can transform many things, there is a limit. It's like a battery. When the stored electricity is used up and there is no recharge, it will naturally become a waste product. It also eroded my body." Mr. Allen turned up his sleeves at this time, revealing the withered state of his arm. Isabel had a playful look on her face and said with a chuckle, "Batteries can pollute the environment. Isn't this normal? Your situation is already very good. At least, your heart hasn't been eroded. You know the solution." Allen rushed to Isabel excitedly in an instant, but Nero blocked him directly, so he had to stop in fear. He reluctantly stepped back under Nero's cold gaze. Isabel said at this time, "Asakes, come and drink with me. How long has it been since we drank together?" Mr. Asakes smiled bitterly. "If we don't count the 10 years here, it should be 10 years, right?" He walked to the table and sat down. Isabel directly made a bottle of cold beer in front of him. It was a local brand in the City of Freedom. "You still remember I like this brand, Asakes. We actually don't need to go back," she suddenly said. Asakes couldn't help but be stunned. Isabel smiled at this time. "Asakes, let's build another City of Freedom here." Her eyes were strange, and there were too many things in her eyes that Asakes was unfamiliar with. This woman in front of him. He felt so strange for the first time. He didn't know how to respond to Isabel's topic. He had to skip this topic and muttered, "How long will it take for the mother lode to be fully mature?" "I don't know. Maybe tomorrow, maybe a year," Isabel said indifferently, "but it doesn't matter, there are many myriad element fruits here, just guard it." With that, Isabel once again clenched the myriad element fruit. Suddenly, a shock came, and at the edge of the coral forest, a closed barrier suddenly rose at this time, directly covering the entire coral forest. She actually closed this place. "What are you? Why are you leaving?" Isabel said slowly. "I said, the main cannon that attacked the palace was not fired by my order." At the same time, there was a loud noise. The barrier that covered the coral forest trembled slightly. It seemed that something had just attacked the barrier. "Finally, it's here." Isabel chuckled, stood up, and walked to the edge of the coral forest. The gauntlet on the fist of a black-armored warrior was completely broken, exposing a gray-skinned palm. Just a moment ago, this warrior had used all of his strength to strike the barrier that had suddenly appeared. "No." The warrior shook his head. The old man in the wheelchair, who was protected by a group of black-armored warriors, slowly opened his eyes. "She discovered me in the end." "Who?" Kane, who was pushing the wheelchair, frowned and asked. "She." The old man slowly raised his hand and pointed forward. Up ahead, a woman slowly walked out of the coral forest within the barrier. She had a smile on her face and only stopped when she reached the barrier. "Isabel. Pope, you are not waiting for my good news in Laputa?" The old man in the wheelchair said slowly. "Isabel, open the barrier. I need to witness this moment. I have waited for too long." At this time, Asakes and his team had caught up with Isabel. They looked at the old man in the wheelchair and the black-armored warriors outside the barrier in surprise. When she saw the black-armored warrior who was pushing the wheelchair for the old man, Nero frowned. "Kane? It's you. Long time no see, my brother." Kane smiled. "My sincerest greetings to you." Nero just snorted. But he could feel that Nero was not relaxed at this time. This group of warriors in black armor gave Arthasias a bad feeling. It was the same aura that Nero emitted when she used the power of vampires. This person is the Pope of the new church in Laputa? Essex looked at Isabel and said quickly, "These guys are also mixed bloods? You are Countess Rose." The old man in the wheelchair looked at Essex. "Legend has it that you are the sinner who killed the Pope of Cicero. I remember you. Back then, you were the little guy who was brought to the city of God blessing by D." Mr. Essex was silent. F***ck. Until now, he still did not know if he was the one who killed the previous pope. "I know you too," Essex sneered and said. "You are the old bastard who promoted the mixed blood project and almost caught me for mating. Elohim. ############################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################### today, so I am not writing very efficiently. PS2. Same as usual. But don't wait. I will not be able to make it before 12 o'clock. PS3. I am going to cook. End of chapter. Chapter 2303. He really hated this bastard. How many cruel experiments had taken place in the biological laboratory that he sealed in the castle? Just look at the bloodstains that covered the floor. As a civilized person, Essex could not help but feel his scalp tingle when he saw the contents of the biological laboratory for the first time. 15 years ago, if the vampire's true ancestor had not attacked the City of God's Blessing, he would have become a research material in the laboratory. At this time, facing Asash's cursing, Pope Elohim was not angry at all. Instead, he signaled Cain behind him to push him to the front of the barrier. Across the barrier, Pope Elohim and Isabel looked at each other without any expression. Isabel did not dodge. Pope Elohim said, "Tell me, Isabel, what do you want? If I want to obtain something, I will obtain it myself." Isabel smiled and said, "And I will get it soon. You don't have to worry about it, Sir Pope." "No, you don't understand it." Pope Elohim shook his head. "At least, you don't understand it fully. I have plenty of time." Isabel said calmly, "Sir Pope, you should go back to Laputa. That is where you belong." Elohim sighed, "This barrier can't stop me." Isabel chuckled, "It doesn't matter. You can destroy it. Once it's broken, I'll make a new one right away." Unexpectedly, this old and weak man slowly stretched out his hand and gently pressed on the barrier. In an instant, this old man's palm directly penetrated the barrier. Isabel's eyes widened and she instinctively took 2 steps back. The old man's palm was obviously so dry and weak that it could not even lift something heavy, but in Isabel's eyes, this was the most terrifying palm. It penetrated the sturdy barrier, as if what it penetrated was just air. "Elohim, you're the one who imagined it." Pope Elohim said slowly, "Even if it comes true, as long as I think it doesn't exist, it can't be real." Isabel was shocked. The incomparably sturdy barrier was actually shattered at this moment. The shattered barrier was like ice crystals, falling from the sky and hitting her body. She could even feel a slight touch. Impossible. Isabel subconsciously raised the essence, fruit in her hand. After shattering the barrier, it rose again at an extremely fast speed. However, Elohim once again reached out and easily penetrated the new barrier. The barrier shattered once again. "I don't believe it." The barrier rose up in front of Isabel once more, and shattered once more. In this way, the barrier appeared again and again, but it was shattered again and again. Isabel seemed to have gone crazy. The essence, fruit in her hand became brighter and brighter, and its size became smaller and smaller. "Enough, Isabel." Pope Elohim's eyes flashed. In that instant, a terrifying majesty appeared on the old man's body. He was still old and looked like he was about to die, but it was different, as if there was a divine light in his eyes. The shining essence, fruit suddenly slipped from Isabel's hand. Her face was pale and her steps were unsteady. Nero quickly went forward to support her. "Elohim, how did you do it?" Isabel's expression was extremely ugly. "Or, is this not the real essence?" Pope Elohim said, This is the real essence. The or mother is indeed here. It's just that you don't understand the essence of essence. I don't understand? It's not just you. Pope Elohim slowly exhaled. He was no longer as dignified as before. He seemed to have aged a lot. Those who are immersed in the power and mystery of 10,000 elements, they don't understand either. Just say it. There's no point in speaking in riddles, Elohim. Isabel took a deep breath and said. Pope Elohim slowly said, these things obtained through essence exist because you think they exist. But I deny their existence, so naturally they don't exist. Isn't this idealism? Asakes couldn't help but open his mouth. Complete idealism? Idealism? Pope Elohim looked at Asakes in surprise, as if he was chewing on the word idealism. Soon, Pope Elohim nodded. You can say that. Asakes thought for a moment. He held the essence, fruit in his hand and used an illusion to create a cup. He directly smashed the cup on the ground. Looking at the cup fragments, he slowly said, these are all fake. However, the cup fragments on the ground didn't disappear. Asakes frowned. Did I do something wrong? Pope Elohim said calmly, did you really deny its existence? Right now, I think the cup is fake. Asakes said seriously. Pope Elohim said, but you created it first. Now you're just hoping that it's fake and illusory. But your heart doesn't think so. If it doesn't exist, then what are the fragments in front of you now? Arthashis felt a headache coming on. Knowing about idealism was one thing, but actually being able to make oneself idealistic was another thing altogether. He couldn't figure it out. Asakes simply shook his head and threw away the essence, fruit in his hand. At the same time, he raised his fist. If it's real, then it's real. My fist is definitely real. Old bastard. Unable to solve a problem, he threw a punch. He wasn't as smart as Ludic, nor was he as scheming as Isabel. When he couldn't figure it out, he preferred to solve it in a violent way. Pope Elohim didn't move in the face of Asash's sudden attack, but came behind him moved. His speed was even faster than Arshatha's. A muffled sound rang out. After the sound was heard, Arthashis was sent flying backwards, and he even spat out a mouthful of blood on the way back. Damn it! Seeing Asakes being knocked down in an instant, Marianne's eyes flashed with a murderous intent. She instantly turned into a black shadow, sneaked up from the ground and rushed toward Cain. In Cain's shadow, a pair of arms directly stretched out and wrapped around his neck, twisting his neck 180 degrees. However, the completely twisted neck was now slowly straightening. The pair of shadow hands that were tightly gripping his neck were directly broken free. Cain directly reached out and grabbed the shadow hands, pulling Marianne out of the shadow by force. You're overestimating yourself, Cain said indifferently as he squeezed Marianne's throat with one hand. Right at this moment, an incomparably hot aura actually came directly from above. Cain looked up and saw a terrifying huge magma fireball falling from the sky. Cain's gaze froze, but he instinctively let go of Marianne and retreated immediately. Bang! The magma fireball fell from the sky and smashed onto the ground. The magma burned the ground, and the huge impact directly smashed many coral trees. The fruits that hadn't been removed were now scattered on the ground like gems. Cain's body was emitting a large amount of fog at this moment. His black armor had already peeled off, revealing his badly burned flesh. Even half of his face had been burned away. However, the terrible injury was recovering at an extremely fast speed. However, in this terrible destruction, the Pope of Elohim was still sitting in his original position. The few feet around him didn't suffer any damage at all. Cain stepped over the magma flowing on the ground with a solemn face and walked to the Pope of Elohim's side. The rest of the mixed bloods also gathered from the dangerous areas where the magma flowed. The Pope of Elohim could deny the creation of universal, But it didn't mean that they could. In fact, until now, only the Pope of Elohim could deny it. At least, in Cain's knowledge, only the Pope of Elohim could do it. No, what was that? Cain's gaze froze. He looked at the coffin that was carried out from the castle's library. The coffin's surroundings were also intact. It wasn't because of the coffin, but because of the person lying in the coffin. The Pope of Elohim said softly, "Cain, push me in. Isabel is not someone who can be easily let go. After all, from the previous Pope, Lord Cicero, she knew too many things that she shouldn't have known." Cain didn't act immediately. Instead, he frowned and said, "Elohim, you can deny the creation of Universal. But can you deny the creation of Universal or Mother?" The Pope of Elohim didn't speak for a long time. The mixed bloods didn't move, as if they were waiting for the old man's answer. "I hope I can." The old man's old voice slowly sounded. A group of people appeared under the mother coral tree in a sorry state. Asash's brain seemed to have stopped working at this moment, and he felt extremely uncomfortable. Just as he arrived at the mother coral tree, he fell to the ground and panted. That guy broke the rules. Cain is the strongest result of the mixed blood project. He even added the cells obtained from Badi into his body. Isabel's pale face was filled with deep fear. In these 15 years, you only drank 1 or 2 mouthfuls of blood when you couldn't take it anymore. You're malnourished and underdeveloped, completely wasting the potential of a superior vampire. You're lucky that you didn't get killed by Cain this time. Asax shook his head. "Alright, let's talk about this later. What do we do now?" That Pope clearly pressed you to the ground and rubbed it against you. Isabel clenched her teeth and said, "I don't know how Elohim managed to negate 10,000 element. Idealism is too vague. But one thing is for sure. Cain and the other mixed bloods can't do what Elohim did. Otherwise, the fireball you summoned wouldn't have been able to stop them." "Continue," Isabel said. "Without the protection of the mixed blood warriors, Elohim is just an old man who's about to die. Even if he has the ability to negate Universal or Mother, in essence, any one of us can easily kill him. I thought of a plan." The 3 figures slowly approached the place where the lava flowed. In front of them was a forest of coral trees that emitted radiance. They were Griffith, Yulia, and Madanzo, who had temporarily gathered together after following the traces of the other party. "I'm afraid the battle here just happened not long ago." In front, Griffith felt more and more danger approaching. He bent his waist and picked up a slightly shining crystal from the ground, carefully examining it. The intact coral trees in front of them had many of these strange crystals. "What is this?" But he didn't get an answer to his question. Both Yulia and Madanzo shook their heads in confusion. The 2 of them also casually picked up a crystal each and looked at it curiously. Griffith frowned and casually put the crystal he picked up into his pocket. He slowly exhaled and pointed his sword at Yulia and Madanzo, saying directly, "You 2, walk in front and don't do anything." Yulia and Madanzo looked at each other. This was probably the first time they were at their wits' end. Yulia smiled bitterly at this moment. At this moment, even if she had a grenade in her hand, the situation wouldn't be so passive, let alone recover her ability to turn into mist. Then, a grenade really appeared in her hand. What's going on?" Madanzo was obviously stunned by the thing that suddenly appeared in Yulia's hand. She looked at it in a daze. What's that in your hand?" At this moment Griffith's eyes narrowed. When he saw the thing in Yulia's hand, his expression changed slightly. The thing in Yulia's hand was actually the kind of silver dust bomb that could cause great damage to vampires. Silver dust bomb. Yulia gritted her teeth, pulled the safety pin on the grenade, and threw it out. Griffith's expression changed slightly and he retreated as fast as he could, only to hear a loud explosion. Flames accompanied the explosion. It wasn't a silver dust bomb. Griffith hid far away and found that the range of the explosion wasn't as large as he had imagined. Although the explosion was powerful, there weren't any silver dust bombs. He frowned and instantly rushed out of the dust cloud caused by the explosion. However, on the other side, Yulia and Madanzo were already gone. Griffith's expression was gloomy and uncertain. She was the one who caught Yulia. There was no way that this woman was hiding anything on her. Where did she get that powerful bomb from? You can't escape. Griffith sneered. Vampires were the best hunters when it came to tracking the scent of humans. ########### PS. 5/11. Chapter 2304. It was impossible to escape from Griffith, who had extraordinary power, even if the grenade gave her some time to escape. Do you still have bombs? I want to have some too. I also want a rocket launcher. Yulia rolled her eyes. She really wanted this thing. It would be best if it was one of the models that she used in Star Creation. Not only could it track automatically, but it could also be loaded automatically. It was also very powerful and could blow up a mountain in minutes. There was an army of Lego soldiers in the Star Creation boundary of her original body, and each of them had one. Wasn't this playing the explosive flow of soldiers? What's that in your hand? What in my hand? A sense of dizziness made Yulia directly kneel on the ground. At the same time, her hands sank, and an extremely gorgeous rocket launcher instantly fell into the soil. Yulia looked at the rocket launcher in her hand in disbelief. She only felt that her brain was about to explode. Her first reaction was, "Can I finally open the Star Creation boundary? This is impossible." The Star Creation boundary was the real foundation of her original body. It contained the collection of her original body when she was alone in the void for countless years. She couldn't open it at all, whether it was before or after she became an Black Soul. It's not alive. But soon, Yulia found that the weapon in her hand was slightly different from the real Star Creation boundary. It was not alive, just the appearance. Yulia frowned, gritted her teeth, and directly carried the rocket launcher and quickly tested it. Except that it's not alive, it has all the functions? What's going on? Found you. At this moment, Griffith's figure had already appeared in front of them. Griffith walked out from the coral bushes with a cold smile on his face. Yulia at this time made up her mind and said, "Don't come over. I'm telling you, don't force me to shoot. I've loaded it with super concentrated Super Armstrong silver dust bullet. One shot can send a vampire's true ancestor to heaven." Griffith didn't speak. He had been fooled once, so naturally, he wouldn't believe it easily. Of course, although it wasn't a silver dust bullet, the previous explosion was indeed powerful. However, as long as it was not a mithril weapon, there was no need to worry too much. Norsta, who was the source of his bloodline, had already died at his hands. After absorbing Norsta's essence, he had become the source of his bloodline. As time passed, his power was rapidly increasing. It wouldn't be long before he could reach the level of a vampire noble. Rebelling against the source of one's bloodline was a great crime, a taboo, and one could easily be killed by the source of one's bloodline. It was incomparably dangerous. However, the danger also meant that rebelling against the source of one's bloodline would bring great benefit. "It seems that I have been too kind to you." Griffith shook his head. "I need you to remember to fear me." "Sorry, I only respect myself." Yulia smiled. Because she was already convinced that the cannon in her hand was the real deal. Except for the life without Xing Chuang, it was the real deal. Although she didn't know how she got it, she knew how to use it. Since she couldn't use the automatic transmission, she would use the manual transmission. She was very good with the baton. Boom! Flames shot out from the end of the rocket launcher, and the recoil even made Yulia's body roll back several times. However, the cannon shell had been shot out. The moment the cannon shell was shot out, Griffith couldn't help but frown. He suddenly felt a terrible danger. He didn't plan to fight it head-on. Perhaps the cannon shell was powerful, but if it couldn't hit its target, then it would be fine. With a flash of his body, Griffith easily dodged the trajectory of the cannon shell. The speed of the cannon shell wasn't so fast that it couldn't be dodged. It seems. Griffith chuckled. The cannon shell had been shot behind him. He looked at Yulia and Yulia in front of him. However, at this moment, Yulia directly inserted the rocket launcher into the ground. The rocket launcher suddenly turned into a thick shield. Griffith frowned. He suddenly felt a great danger, a great danger. A whistling sound came from behind him. At the same time, a terrible light appeared behind Griffith. Boom! The earth-shattering sound made the whole coral jungle shake. The shock wave produced by the explosion instantly flattened nearly 1/4 of the coral jungle. Under the huge impact, the two figures were directly sent flying, pushed into the depths of the coral forest and then directly fell to the ground. Rolling and separating, the huge shield was directly inserted between Yulia and Madanzo's bodies. The two of them spat out several mouthfuls of blood. Madanzo only felt a dull pain in her sternum, and her ears were almost ringing. After a while, Yulia struggled to get up with the help of the shield. She pressed something on the shield, and the shield changed its shape again. Then, it split up and assembled along her arm. Finally, the muzzle hung down on her back. "You've recovered the magical star creation technique?" Madanzo couldn't help but be surprised. But didn't it say that the star creation technique needed a carrier? Why did it appear out of nowhere? No. Yulia shook her head. "I'm afraid it's because of this thing." She slowly stretched out her hand. In her palm, a dim crystal rolled down naturally. The moment it fell to the ground, the crystal shattered. Yulia thought for a while and said, "This thing seems to be able to devour my spiritual power," and then it summoned this weapon. Madanzo was stunned and asked subconsciously, "The process?" Yulia pondered and said, "Probably something like visualization in the heart. Maybe it's triggered by a strong need, but there should be a limit. This weapon should be a star creation creature, but it's obviously lifeless now. Maybe it's limited to a pure inorganic substance, and it can't reach the level of a soul structure." Madanzo held the crystal in her hand again. A sword of pure holy light slowly appeared. With the birth of the sword of light, the crystal began to dim at a rapid rate and eventually shattered. It shouldn't be a pure substance. Madanzo held the light sword in her hand and muttered, "Maybe it's energy. My spiritual power has indeed decreased." But the crystal is consumed too quickly. Yulia couldn't help but shake her head. Her rocket launcher and Madanzo's light sword consumed 2 crystals directly. Although there were many crystals growing in this coral forest, if she really wanted to use them, it was probably not enough for her alone. "Do you think it's a simple creation?" Madanzo glared at her. "Whether it's my light sword or this thing in your hand, it's quite dangerous for this world. It's something out of the ordinary, okay?" Yulia thought for a while and said, "Senior, it seems that the appearance of the God-blessed church this time is probably for these crystals, right?" "Most likely." Madanzo pondered for a while. "This world seems barren, and there are no other supernatural powers apart from vampires. However, the degree of strangeness may be deeper than the previous world. Do you still remember the body of the long-haired monster when we came in? Primordial void demon? It looks like it, but it's not," Madanzo said with a serious expression. "Compared to the real primordial void demon, it's much weaker, more like a baby." At this moment, the rocket launcher arm attached to Yulia's arm suddenly made a noise. Yulia frowned and said, "Senior, someone is coming. This thing of yours, how many functions does it have?" "Nothing else. Attack, defense, search for enemies, just these few." Yulia shook her head and said casually, "After all, it's not a masterpiece." A figure quickly appeared, a mixed blood wearing black forest armor. It was impossible that the Pope of Elohim and his people didn't notice the huge commotion in the coral forest. Cain ordered a group of mixed bloods to investigate within the area. The mixed blood who came here had sensed the presence of a living person and followed it here. However, there was no one in this place except for a mark on the ground that was smashed by something. The mixed blood didn't leave immediately. Instead, he focused on sensing the presence around. His eyes focused and looked at a coral tree. Here? Sneer. Attack. The mixed blood was as fast as a ghost. In the blink of an eye, he had moved behind the coral tree. He saw a woman lying on the tree trunk, peeking out from behind the tree trunk. She was wearing a strange vambrace. At this moment, the woman did not even know that the person she was spying on had already appeared behind her. At this moment, she seemed to be surprised that the person had suddenly disappeared. The mixed blood chuckled and squinted his eyes. The woman emitted a tempting fragrance. It really was a top-notch ingredient that was hard to come by. It wasn't inferior to the blood slaves that the church had specially provided for them. No, she was even more tempting. The mixed blood licked his lips subconsciously. His hand slowly reached for the woman's nape. Soon, he would grab it. A light flashed. It flashed before his eyes. By the time the mixed blood reacted, his outstretched arm, his arm had already fallen to the ground. My arm! The pain started to spread. The moment it spread, it was already at its peak. There was a force more terrifying than mithril at the broken part of his arm, which was eroding it crazily. The mixed blood grabbed his broken arm. My arm! Hey! At this moment, a slightly immature figure could be heard coming from the branches of the coral tree. It was a young boy who was hanging upside down on the branches of the coral tree. The young boy was holding a strange lightsaber in his hand. The young man turned over and directly jumped down from the tree branch. The young man landed on the ground and directly high-fived the woman who was lying on the tree trunk. These two people deliberately set up a trap to sneak attack him. In an instant, the mixed blood whose arm was cut off saw through everything. He was furious. He had never suffered such a big loss before, which made him burst out with boundless anger in his bloodthirsty mood. I'll tear you to pieces. The mixed blood was furious. He resisted the terrible eroding force at the broken part of his arm, and his fangs rose sharply. At this moment, Yulia raised her arm and a cannon appeared on her arm guard. In an instant, something was shot out and blasted directly on the mixed blood. But it wasn't a powerful artillery shell. What was released was a big net. The big net made of special material instantly wrapped the mixed blood up. He couldn't break free even with his strength. Instead, the big net shrank crazily and directly pierced him into a human's stick. Despicable! The mixed blood was furious. But Madanzo directly slapped the lightsaber on the mixed blood's lips. Like branding, the mixed blood's mouth instantly emitted black smoke. At this moment Madanzo chuckled and said, "We use the most powerful and greatest force in the world to hit you, how can this be despicable?" Yulia directly rolled her eyes and then blocked the lightsaber with her armor. He still wants to ask questions. What if you burn him until he becomes mute? I won't tell you anything. Yulia directly shrugged and said, "Your companions should be here soon, it's useless even if you don't tell us. Anyway, we'll tell your companions that you've told us everything." Humph. The mixed blood sneered, "Cheap trick. Wow. So that's it." Yulia directly shouted at this moment, "I didn't expect you to do this. So powerful. Is this your secret?" The mixed blood couldn't help but be dumbfounded, watching the woman shouting shamelessly with her hands around her mouth, even forgetting the pain at the broken part. F***CKU. What? You've been dissatisfied with your boss for a long time? Oh, I got it again. Don't worry, I won't tell your companions that you told us because you're afraid of death. After all, we promised to let you go, and we'll keep our promise. The mixed blood's face was gloomy. Yulia continued to shout at the top of her voice, replaying the scene again. "Stop. That's enough," the mixed blood said in exasperation. "You, What do you want to know? Senior, why don't you ask? Yulia immediately winked at Senior 11. Madanzo rolled her eyes, waved the lightsaber in her hand, and directly cut off the mixed blood warrior's legs. Safety. There's still one who hasn't returned. In front of the coral tree in the middle of the forest, Pope Elohim lowered his head. It was almost impossible to sense his life force. Even though it was Cain's voice reporting at this moment. They had been following Isabel's group all the way here, but they still couldn't find Isabel's group. Elohim, other than us, is there anyone else who knows about this place? Cain couldn't help but ask. That loud sound and the huge tremor caused by it? Obviously, there was an unknown force in the coral tree forest. Perhaps it was those terrifying strange demons outside? Indeed, there is someone else who knows. Elohim slowly raised his head, as if he had just woken up from a nap. Who is it? The true ancestor of the vampires, Pope Elohim said slowly. Cain couldn't help but be shocked, and the rest of the mixed-blood warriors looked even more serious. Then, Pope Elohim said something even more shocking. If I'm not wrong, the true ancestor of the vampires had already entered this place 15 years ago when they broke through God Bless Church. ######### PS1. Slow down for a day. I'm almost done with this part, I need to sort it out. Chapter 2305. Hearing that the true ancestor of the vampires had entered the core of the earth 15 years ago, the mixed-blood warriors, including the strongest mixed-blood Cain, could not help but look serious. After the Vatican was defeated, the new Vatican was formed in Laputa, and the mixed-blood project was started again. The last batch of mixed-blood warriors, led by Cain, had achieved great results in the 15 years after the war. The appearance of Cain and the other mixed-blood warriors allowed God Bless the Vatican to truly master supernatural powers. The mixed-blood warriors would also be God Bless the Vatican's trump card against the vampires. Finally, are we going to face off against the true ancestor of the vampires? Cain exhaled slowly. As the strongest mixed blood, his growth was accompanied by all the plans that could be used against the true ancestor of the vampires. Although it was not his original intention, killing the true ancestor of the vampires had been written into his instinct. Hearing the name of the true ancestor, Cain's body began to become restless. He forcefully suppressed the thirst for battle in his body, knowing that things were not that simple. Elohim, if the true ancestor of the vampires had entered the core of the earth 15 years ago, does that mean that it is also waiting for the mother lode to mature? I can't give you a definite answer. Pope Elohim looked down. Cain pondered for a while and suddenly said, I've searched the surroundings and found Isabel. There's only one place left. He was looking at the mother tree of the coral tree. The mother tree was unusually huge, and there was a lot of space hidden in it. It was also tall and strong. Even so, it would be foolish to hide in the mother tree. Isabel and the others had mastered the use of infinite element. But there was a price to pay for using it. The more they used it, the faster they would die. Cain, please take me to the mother lode. The old man in the wheelchair suddenly reached out his hand, as if it was the last bit of strength he could muster. His withered fingers could barely hang on. In the name of Elohim, I will definitely send you there. Cain held the old man's weak hand. However, at this time, a mixed-blood warrior stepped forward and said with a serious expression, Leader, we have no news of Morpheus at all. What should we do? Morpheus, the mixed-blood warrior who had yet to return to his team. Cain thought for a moment and said, if he was not in danger, he would have come back on his own. If he was in danger, he would have issued a warning, but there was no news at all. Could it be? Morpheus is already here? Cain shook his head, took a deep breath, and said, I don't care anymore. No matter what the purpose of the enemy is, as long as we are in front of the mother lode, we have the initiative. Let's go in. The two mixed-blood warriors nodded and began to pry open the roots of the coral mother tree. There was already a gap here, so they could easily pass through by prying it open. The diameter of the coral mother tree was dozens of meters. Although the interior space was large, it wasn't that far to go. Cain pushed the wheelchair and walked in the middle. Both sides were guarded by the mixed-blood warriors. However, the space within the mother tree was extremely dim. Even with the extraordinary eyesight of the mixed-blood warriors, they could not see clearly. Logically speaking, we should have reached the center. Why is it still like this? Cain could not help but frown. All of a sudden, he could no longer hear the movements of his teammates, be it those who were leading the way in front or those who were bringing up the rear. The hybrid warrior was the only one left in the darkness at this moment. Elohim! Cain hurriedly called out. Fortunately, the Pope of Elohim was still by his side. However, the Pope of Elohim's body was reaching its limit. His eyes were hazy and gradually lost their spirit. At this moment, in the darkness, a sharp sound pierced through the air. Cain snorted coldly. Even in such an extreme environment, his combat power was still terrifying. Like a wild beast, in the darkness, Cain stretched out his fingers and caught a sharp blade that was heading towards him. In the air, there was an oppressive aura. Cain snorted coldly, "Hell, I know it's you. Stop, there's no need to do it for that woman. The woman you are talking about raised me." Most of the time, a simple reason was enough. Cain didn't say anything else. A mixed blood was a tool created to fight. It was just that there was a detestable woman who turned one of the tools into a tool with feelings. Took her a whole 15 years. Just like how Elohim also took 15 years to raise him. Since he had already made his stance clear, there was nothing more to say. Cain's body instantly erupted with a vampire power that far exceeded Hell's level. In the darkness, a demonic light flashed past, but it allowed Cain to see the scene before him clearly. This place was not narrow, but spacious. It was so spacious that it didn't seem like they were in the mother tree at all. There's a problem here. Cain's gaze was like lightning. In an instant, in the dark environment, he saw traces of hell. This is not the mother tree. As expected of you, Senior Cain. In the darkness, Hell's surprised voice slowly sounded. You guessed right. This is indeed not the inside of the mother tree. The mother tree that you see is also fake. Infinite essence? Cain's expression turned serious. It's Isabel's idea, right? She just wanted to do an experiment. Hell said indifferently. Lady Isabel wanted to know if the Pope could distinguish what was originally there and what was created by infinite essence without telling him. Now it seems that the Pope Elohim's so-called denial in his heart was probably due to preconceived notions, right? Or perhaps, even if the Pope Elohim knows that the mother tree is fake, there's nothing he can do anymore? You talk too much. At this moment, Cain had already appeared in front of Hell. The young knight's expression changed slightly. This terrifying speed was even beyond his perception. This was the strongest mixed blood? Tactical retreat. In the darkness, a Sasha's voice sounded instantly. Hell leaned back almost instinctively. At the same time, Asax quickly made his move at this moment, directly punching towards Cain's head. Logically speaking, as a superior noble, his power was not small at all. However, this full-force punch on Cain's head could not shake Cain's body. At this moment, Cain grabbed Sasha's wrist and threw him to the ground. The moment he landed, Asax felt like all the bones in his body were shattered. He endured the pain and a long sword suddenly appeared in his hand. The long sword that appeared strangely stabbed towards Cain's abdomen. This was a mithril weapon, a weapon created by infinite essence. All of this was to pass this weapon to Cain. The mithril sword pierced through Cain's abdomen and came out directly from behind him. He took a few steps back. Asax got up with difficulty and said in surprise, "It's done." "Not yet." At this moment, Hell rushed out and stabbed towards Cain's heart with extreme speed. Cain moved. He pulled out the mithril sword from his abdomen and slashed at Hell's blade. Both weapons instantly shattered. The wound on Cain's abdomen was healing crazily. Is this guy a monster? Essex could not help but take a deep breath. Are mixed bloods not afraid of mithril? Nero retreated to Arthasius's side and said expressionlessly, It's just that our resistance to mithril is stronger than normal. It's just that since Cain was 10 years old, he would use mithril weapons every day to strengthen his body, infinitely increasing his resistance. Pervert! Essex cursed. It was not easy to use the mother tree created by infinite essence to separate the rest of the mixed blood warriors, leaving only Cain. He did not expect Cain to be so difficult to deal with even though he was the only one left. At this moment, Asash's expression changed slightly. Cain seemed to have felt something and a murderous look flashed across his eyes. At this moment, a black shadow had already moved stealthily on the ground and quietly came to Pope Elohim's side. It turned out that even Countess Rose's sneak attack was just a pretense. The real killer was this shadow lurking in the dark, Marianne, who had the ability to transform into a shadow. How dare you! In the darkness, Cain's roar shook like thunder. A terrifying power was completely released at this moment. A terrifying impact, with Cain at the center, directly pushed out in all directions. The shadow had just climbed onto Pope Elohim's body when it was bounced off by this terrifying impact force. At the same time, the darkness swept away. A deep pit that was dozens of meters deep appeared on the ground with Cain as the center. Cain was now standing at the bottom of the deep pit, holding the dying Pope Elohim with both hands. Wisps of dark red energy were slowly rising from his body. Cain's legs left the ground and slowly flew out of the deep pit, rising directly into the air. He looked down and saw that on the ground, his mixed-blood subordinates had actually fallen. There was a certain degree of fear on their faces, as if they had encountered something terrifying before they died. Did you kill them? Cain's eyes instantly locked onto a graceful figure on the ground, Isabel. In Isabel's hand was a weapon that he had seen before. But this weapon shouldn't be in Isabel's hand, it should still be stuck in Dia's body. The sword in Isabel's hand was probably a temporary replica created by universal essence. This wasn't the most important thing. The most important thing was that she had just pulled out this replica from the body of a mixed blood. Isabel said indifferently, I didn't expect that Essex and Nero would join forces, and even Marianne secretly joined in, but they were still defeated by you. You're indeed the strongest mixed blood. I thought I had overestimated your strength enough, but I didn't expect that I was still a little careless. Humph, you've hidden your strength well. Cain could already vaguely feel that there was an obscure and powerful force in Isabel's body. If it wasn't for the fact that she used her power, he couldn't even sense it. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to not notice it after all these years on Laputa. Just in time for chaos. Isabel said indifferently, a weak woman like me has to learn to protect herself. How the F***ck did she dare to call herself a weak woman? Mr. Essex rolled his eyes. If Isabel was a weak woman, he would immediately go streaking. Then what are you? Cain slowly landed on the ground. An unknown mixed blood? A vampire whose special ability is to cut off all senses? Or something else? Don't tell me that you're a monster in human skin. I'll tell you this question when I worship you. Isabel suddenly chuckled, but she slowly raised the universal essence, fruit, in her hand. In the blink of an eye, another identical weapon appeared in her hand. On the ground, at this time, whether it was Essex, Nero, or even Marianne who had returned after being repelled, they all used the universal essence, fruit, to create the weapons they wanted. Cain looked at them indifferently. There was no lack of universal essence, fruit in this place, and he could easily get it by plucking it, but he didn't want to use the power of the universal essence, fruit. Elohim had once taught him that as long as the essence, fruit, was used once, there would be no way to deny it. The temptation of the fruit would be imprinted in one's soul from the very first time, and one would not be able to give it up. He also wanted to be the person who denied the existence of universal essence. Cain looked down and saw that Elohim had already fainted, like a flame that was about to be extinguished in the snow. There's no time. Cain heaved a sigh of relief and tied Elohim to himself. He didn't have any weapons, only a pair of fists. He firmly believed that the body was the most powerful weapon. If possible, he hoped that he could train his body to the point where it was invincible and indestructible. The final battle was triggered. An invincible body, in the transparent coral forest. Boss Luo lowered his head and pondered. Cain, this is the original intention of obtaining the pseudo-eternal indestructible body. It's time for Madanzo to meet him. Boss Luo's gaze was now on the dying old man who was tied to Cain's body. Give me an answer, Madanzo. Are you qualified to take over the new kingdom of heaven? The mixed-blood warrior, who was almost turned into a human stick, called himself Morpheus. However, Senior 11 said that he didn't encounter this guy in other worlds, so he must be a minor character among minor characters. He might even be mass-produced by the book of covers, for the sake of the integrity of the page world, so he could be completely forgotten. Listen, was this something a human said? Senior 11 wasn't a human. At this moment, Yulia casually ended Morpheus, who had no value at all, and looked at Madanzo. Senior, what next? She wasn't a human either. However, at this moment, Madanzo frowned thoughtfully. Senior, what's wrong? I feel like... Madanzo muttered at this moment, I feel like I've suddenly been arranged. ######PS. As usual. End of chapter. Chapter 2306. There was no doubt that the mixed blood who called himself Morpheus was a traitor with a weak will. In the process of creating mixed bloods, the Holy See often had to rely on drugs to control them due to the differences in the mixed blood individuals. Morpheus was one of them who needed drugs to maintain his mental stability. In general, this guy had poor psychological qualities and his ability to resist pressure was almost zero. Just like those sensitive bodies, he would be very honest after a few probing. As a mixed-blood warrior, Morpheus undoubtedly knew many secrets, such as the truth behind the invasion of the Holy See 15 years ago. Arrangements? Yulia was stunned and said suspiciously, You mean, like in the page world in the Holy Land, the power of destiny? Madanzo shook her head and said uncertainly, I can't say for sure. Maybe it's just an illusion. Could it be, boss? Yulia thought in her heart but did not say it in front of Madanzo. For her, after experiencing many page worlds, Madanzo's identity as a senior had long been doubtful. But until now, she still insisted on calling Madanzo senior. This was a strange friendship born after experiencing too much. Could she believe it? Yulia. Madanzo suddenly said, Do you think the destruction of the primordial world was because the humans of the primordial world tried to create infinite essence, and ultimately led to the destruction of the primordial world? Yulia frowned and said, But wasn't our previous speculation about the invasion of the primordial demons of the void? Madanzo pondered and said, They could first create infinite essence and cause the entire world to be sucked dry. When the world's power is no longer maintained, the space will become abnormally fragile and give the primordial demons in the void a chance. Yulia shook her head and said, Senior, we've all seen the power of the royal family. If you have the power to control destiny, would you still create infinite essence? I thought of a guy. Madanzo suddenly looked up and said, He doesn't have the power of the glorious sun, and he can do such a thing. You're talking about Prince Huang? Yulia widened her eyes. Madanzo gently nodded. That guy, how could he? Yulia took a deep breath. No, if it's really that bitch, he might have the guts to do it. This cameo said that the previous pope of the Curia was called Cicero, Madanzo said again. Yulia subconsciously rubbed her bangs and said with a wry smile, Why is he still here? This should be very late in the timeline of our homeworld, Madanzo said thoughtfully. Yulia nodded. That's right. After all, those corpses are still hanging on the plaza outside. Chintian, iron armor cats. Toad Taro. The corpses on the plaza where the God Bless Curia headquarters used to be were all dried up. What did this mean? This meant that in the real homeworld, the original versions of these people were probably no longer there. If only I could find the pages in the previous world. Madanzo shook her head. Even if I just took a look at them, I missed some important things. At this time, Yulia had been watching the battle between Cain and Isabel through the monitor on her vambrace. At this time, the battle was actually one-sided. It was Cain who beat up a group of people without using the infinite essence fruit. Cain's fighting style reminded Yulia of the legendary Kai Wang in the Holy Land's Page world. He also used his body to fight, and he was just as strong. Senior, speaking of which, this guy called Cain? Don't ask me. Madanzo smiled bitterly. My brain is about to explode, let alone the name Cain. Do you know who the current pope is? Elohim? Yulia asked subconsciously. What's wrong with this name? Madanzo grabbed his hair, and his eyes were surging. He seemed to be afraid, terrified, and at a loss. That's his name, him? The Master of Heaven, how can it be? Do you know what this means? Madanzo's face was full of shock. He seemed to have fallen into some kind of mental breakdown. Yulia could not help but be frightened. She said with a trembling voice, What is it? We know that the primordial is the starting point of everything. Metatro's voice became increasingly unstable like a madman. Everyone who enters the dimensional void will feel a calling from the unseen world. It's telling us to find the primordial one. Yulia nodded subconsciously. Madanzo suddenly grabbed her arms. If what the Book of Gaia describes is an incomplete fragment of the primordial, then the people here used to live in the primordial. Do you know what this means? In an instant, Yulia's face turned pale. Madanzo screamed. The primordial is the starting point, and there is a person called Elohim in the primordial. What the hell is this? What is the Master of Heaven? In theory, the Master of Heaven has completed the unification. And the result? The result is that the primordial has an earlier starting point. Don't say it, we. Madanzo put her hands together and took a few steps back weakly. She seemed to be mocking and said faintly, Maybe it's just another kind of false soul. Our essence is a false soul. But it has been upgraded to the level of true soul. Don't say it. Yulia screamed and covered her ears. Madanzo, that's enough. One of them was terrified, while the other was on the verge of collapse. They stared at each other, trying to find some peace in their hearts. After a long time, Madanzo slowly sighed and said with a sad smile, I am really not a black soul envoy. I know. Yulia responded faintly, I'm not called Yulia either. I'm called Nan Xiaonan. I am very clear about who I am, very clear about what I want, very clear about what my motivation is, very clear about everything about myself. Madanzo looked deeply at Nan Xiaonan. Newbie, I want to meet Elohim face to face. Can you help me? Nan Xiaonan slowly exhaled and frowned. Now that you've said so much, don't you think your request is King shameless? You've seen Cain's strength. What's the difference between you and me going up now? Is your lightsaber hard enough, or is my cannon powerful enough? Madanzo was silent for a while. Suddenly, she bowed deeply to Nan Xiaonan. She did not say anything and did not show any hypocrisy. She turned and left, walking towards the terrifying battlefield. His back was about to disappear from her sight. Nan Xiaonan's expression was uncertain. She remained in the same spot until Madanzo's back was completely out of sight. Lady Nan sighed and lay on the ground with her arms and legs spread out. I'm afraid of death. What's wrong with being afraid of death? A mouthful of thick, almost black blood flowed out from the corner of Asash's mouth. His vision was a little blurry. He subconsciously wiped the blood off his lips. Mainly, he did not want to waste it. Because she was always in a state of hunger, she would not drink a mouthful of blood unless it was necessary. She was indeed a stunted, anemic vampire. She's really a monster. How strong is she? He slowly stood up and wanted to fight again, but his legs didn't listen to him and started to tremble on their own. Asax could only watch as Cain grabbed Nero's head with one hand and raised it up. Cain then punched Nero's chest repeatedly. Although they were both mixed bloods, the gap between them was so huge. Nero had probably lost consciousness, right? Both of his hands were hanging down weakly. Isabel could only stand in front of him with her sword tied. Marianne had fallen not far away. She struggled a few times but did not succeed in turning over. The ability of the essence fruit did not have much resistance in this absolute gap. After all, the essence could only create substances. It could not directly increase their individual strength. What else can it create? Arthashes once again grabbed the myriad element fruit, a terrifyingly powerful bomb? However, wouldn't Cain dodge it? This guy could even ignore a mithril weapon. Magma? Cain, with all his strength, could even withstand the high temperature of magma. He had already tried it. As for the method of creating different gases to achieve gas explosion, he had also thought about it. However, this was completely a method of mutual destruction. Moreover, he did not know if Cain could withstand it. Was there really no solution? Air Lily should be hiding properly. It was no longer suitable for her to participate in such a battle. Asax thought a lot at this time. At the juncture of life and death, the brain was abnormally active. It was actually very easy to be distracted. For example, right now, he suddenly wanted to drink a cup of cold girl's blood. I really want to drink Air Lily's blood. Mr. Asax suddenly quivered. He was alarmed by his own thoughts. He knew that because he had been injured one after another and consumed a lot of his strength, his body had long fallen into a trough. The vampire's instinct had begun to go out of control. At this moment, the essence, fruit in his hand, which had already dimmed a little, suddenly flashed. In front of Arthashes, there was even a thin layer of frost on the surface of a cup of blood appearing. Asash's throat swayed subconsciously. His lips trembled as he opened them, and blood-sucking fangs slowly extended from his lips. Using the essence to obtain blood and replenish your strength? You should have done this long ago, Earl rose. At this moment, a figure appeared in front of Asax, looking down at him condescendingly. It was Cain. Unexpectedly, Asax suddenly reached out and slapped his hand that was reaching for the cup. He even directly knocked the cup over, letting the blood flow to the ground. Don't you suck blood? Cain said indifferently. There's no sense of ritual, I won't drink it. Asax gritted his teeth. With just a thought, a cup full of Air Lily's blood appeared in front of him. There was no soul at all. What af * king waste? Asax suddenly wanted to slap himself at this moment. He really did not want to bite Air Lily, but he could not bear the instinctive impulse. Wasn't using the essence a compromise? Do you feel it? Feel what? Asax exhaled heavily. He pressed his hands on his knees and finally straightened his back. The terrifying part of the essence, Cain said indifferently, its pervasiveness and irresistible temptation. This time, you used your own willpower to reject the blood-sucking. What about the next time? The third time, and countless times in the future? Do you have the confidence to reject it? Asax could not help but fall silent. Suddenly, he did something very strange. He put his hand on his chest and lightly clenched his fist, as if he was grabbing onto something. He even closed his eyes. Please listen to my confession. His voice was intermittent. It was weak but firm. Cain frowned subconsciously. he instinctively resisted Arthas's voice of repentance. At this time, what was there to be repentance for? Cain slowly raised his hand. At that moment, it was only a matter of time before Arthakis could be dealt with a single blow. However, at this moment, a weak voice made this incomparably powerful mixed blood abruptly stop his attack. It was Elohim's voice. "You're awake. I want to listen." "I don't know why I let him speak." Cain was not sure if the old man was really awake at this time. However, he would do his best to fulfill all of the old man's wishes. Whether it was small or great, everything. "Please listen to my confession." Asash's expression was completely solemn. He even slowly knelt on the ground and lowered his head. "Lord, I have sinned, many, many sins. I have seen so many signs, those what I wanted to see. I fought because of hatred and despair. It was me. Let people believe that God allowed them to fight for their ideals." The wind rose. Asash's voice seemed to become some kind of symbol. In the palm of his hand, a touch of holy light went from weak to strong and even dazzling. Cain subconsciously waved his hand to block this dazzling light. However, Elohim's gradually dimming eyes gradually regained a trace of spirit. In the distance, listening to Asash's confession at this moment and feeling the light that appeared in his palm, the weapon in Isabel's hand suddenly fell from her hand. "This is..." Her face was pale as she knelt on the ground weakly. She could not control a tear from falling from her eye. The final confession of the Saint of Freedom, it was a kind of sadness that seemed to be branded in the depths of the soul, anger, humiliation, and despair. At that moment, Cain threw a punch at the ray of light. Enough! However, the holy light released from Asash's hand directly blocked Cain's fist at this moment. This powerful hybrid could not help but reveal a trace of shock at this moment. Arthas's repentant voice did not stop there. "I am very proud. I am also very stubborn. Selfish. Cruel." A light covered Asash's entire body. It was the shadow of a young girl's confession. ######PS. 6/11. End of chapter. Chapter 2307. It was as if he was being protected by the shadow of the young girl. At this moment, in Isabel's eyes, Arthas was pure and holy. Even in the free cities, the holiness of a devout person was rare. What kind of piety did one have to be able to summon the shadow of a free saint? She looked at Asax silently. There was no joy in her heart, only endless humiliation. The confession of a saint. Such a confession was the deepest pain of a saint's family. Because, before becoming a saint, this was the confession that a saint had been induced to make in prison. "Asax, have you forgotten how she died?" Isabel screamed in despair, shouting, "You don't deserve the holy glory! You don't deserve it!" But her voice could not be transmitted. At this moment, Asax could not hear anything. He was still under the protection of the young girl's shadow, in a strange state, similar to that of deification. He opened his eyes, and his gaze was no different from the young girl's. The gaze of the young girl's shadow was benevolent, and his gaze was benevolent. The gaze of the young girl's shadow was tender and loving, and his gaze seemed to love everything. It seemed to be able to influence everything. Cain was the closest to Asax. He even tried to destroy the radiance that Asax emitted when he was repenting, but he failed. At this moment, when he met Asash's gaze, Cain had an indescribable feeling. His heart became heavy, and his spirit was being troubled bit by bit. All of the sins seemed to have become thorns, entangling his entire body. His strong body, which even mithril weapons could not harm, was now being pierced by the thorns of sin until it was dripping with blood. "I have sinned." Cain looked at his hands, which were trembling. Cain looked at the ground, which seemed to be paved with countless souls in pain. He suddenly knelt on the ground. "I have sinned." As strong as he was, the moment the radiance of the holy light shone on him, he seemed to have turned into a crying lamb and completely lost himself. However, the radiance of the holy light did not shine on Cain alone. It covered the whole place and was reflected on everyone. At this moment, Asaix seemed to have become the embodiment of holiness and redemption. Madanzo was very close to the battlefield, and the holy light also shone on it. But it was different. This level of holy light, no, this level of light of repentance was not enough to make it repent. It just felt incredulous, even if the girl's shadow was the girl from Orleans who was burned to death by the fire. What made it feel inconceivable was that under the rules of the page world, the power of the holy light should not exist. Otherwise, how could it and Nan Xiaonan be instantly wiped out? Even the holy light sword in his hand was only created through the essence, fruit. It was a weapon that purely contained some holy light power. Moreover, it would be depleted every time it was used, and there was no way to replenish it. It's the myriad essence, ability. In an instant, Madanzo had a vague answer in her heart. The light of repentance did not really come from the Saint of Freedom. Its appearance was a strong wish of Asaix. It only appeared with the power of the all-essence, fruit, and the carrier of the light of repentance was, the two, holy glory, passed down in the saint's family. Of these two, holy glory, one was in the family of Isabel and Ludic, and the other was kept by the family of Asaix. Good fellow, although it is the result of many coincidences. Madanzo laughed bitterly. But this light of repentance is about the same as awakening her will. Moreover, this was brought about by the essence, fruit. In essence, it would not even consume the will that she left behind. This was the difference. Those present, whether it was Asaix or Isabel, would not have thought of the various reasons behind this, but he could understand, and he would understand very quickly. But understanding was one thing. At this moment, Madanzo could only hold the holy light created by the essence, fruit, and squat in the grass. This was also the truth. Elohim, Madanzo's gaze was fixed on the dying old man from the beginning to the end. Cain seemed to have lost himself, and even denied himself, forgetting everything. Even Elohim, who was tied to his body, was struggling to untie the rope with his slightly trembling hands, as if he did not feel anything. The old pope took a long time to untie the rope on his body, and he rolled to the ground. But he quickly got up. At this moment, there was only this light of repentance in the eyes of Pope Elohim. I saw it, light. I saw it. I saw it. I saw it. This is what I was looking for. Mercy. Compassion. I've finally found you. My faith, I've finally, the old man, who was in a sorry state, could not walk to Asaix in the end. His battered body was unable to continue, and he could only fall to the ground once more. But even so, there was still a light in Pope Elohim's eyes. It was the light of the soul. Madanzo looked at the old man who was about to die at any moment. She looked at his sorry state as he desperately tried to touch the light. She was stunned on the spot. Elohim, is this your beginning? An ordinary person who sought faith. It thought of the room where the name Elohim was engraved on the tower. That was a room only ascetics would live in. That was a room only lost and desperate people would live in. That was a room prepared for extremists. It was narrow and old, with only a window that could see the palm-sized sky. He, Elohim, had always been searching and perfecting the faith in his heart. At this moment, with the help of the light of repentance emitted by Asaix, Elohim found what he had always been searching for. Elohim, you used to be so helpless and yearning. Then, what about me in the past? Did the me of the past also exist in the primordial? Madanzo murmured softly, was there really me? At this moment, if you weren't there, why would you hear the call of the beginning? Madanzo was shocked. She subconsciously turned around and saw a familiar face, Nan Xiaonan, the Nan Xiaonan who was still wearing Yulia's disguise. Don't look at me, Lady Nan said calmly, I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing this for myself. I also want to complete the page world strategy. Otherwise, how am I going to leave? Thank you, Madanzo said softly. Lady Nan could not help but have goosebumps all over her body. She took a deep breath and said, "Don't say such mushy words. I love you." Metatro didn't feel burdened at all and continued. "You motherf asterisk cur." Lady Nan could not hold back any more. She pointed the cannon on her vambrace at the back of Madanzo's head and said, "You motherf asterisk cur, say one more word and I'll blow you up." Madanzo smiled. This was the first time it was so relaxed since entering the Corps. "What are you smiling about?" Lady Nan frowned. Madanzo sighed and said, "Nothing. I just suddenly thought that people who like to dwell on insignificant problems usually have bad luck. My luck is very bad, so I couldn't help but smile." "Are you okay?" Lady Nan touched Madanzo's forehead tentatively. But Madanzo shook its head, indicating that it was fine. It even asked, "What's wrong with you?" Elohim at this time? It believed that Nan Xiaonan had been here for a long time, and what she saw might not be less than what it saw. This old man called Elohim, is he really the master of heaven? Lady Nan pondered and said, "I'm talking about the original." "I'm afraid so." Madanzo thought for a while and said, "I'm not completely sure, but it's almost there." Lady Nan subconsciously rubbed its bangs. "If that's the case, then this is a little inappropriate. Tell me about it." Nan Xiaonan said, "Your heaven's belief system should be created by him, so it belongs to the latter." But here, Elohim obviously did not have such a belief system. In other words, the original Elohim did not have a belief system, or he did not have time to complete this belief system. This is the former. But now, the former was influenced by the latter and completed what should have been completed by the latter. And this is King done by himself. Isn't this a mess? Yes, it's a mess. Madanzo smiled bitterly. Just now it was almost trapped by this problem and almost could not get out. That was why it wanted to ask Nan Xiaonan what it thought of this matter. "You're thinking too much because of this?" Nan Xiaonan looked at Madanzo in shock. It did not deny and only sighed. Nan Xiaonan directly punched the head of this androgynous fellow. "What are you thinking about? This is the world of the Book of Gaia, not the dimensional crevice outside." Madanzo subconsciously hugged its head and blinked. Are you stupid?" Lady Nan said in annoyance. "The characters in the Book of Gaia have their own evolution patterns. Why can't the characters here be inspired by other things and create something that is more advanced? Besides, even if the characters in the book create something that is more advanced, will it affect the outside world? I don't know what you're thinking about." Perhaps this old man was already on the verge of breaking through, and was just missing something. Because of Arthashis' arrival, he was able to break through without a hitch. How do you know that this old man didn't get some inspiration when he was in the primordial origin and did the same kick? In the depths of Madanzo's consciousness, there seemed to be a flash of lightning. "I understand," it muttered to itself. "Now I understand. You finally understand." Miss Nan rolled her eyes in annoyance. "Look at this guy. He looks quite smart. Why did he only realize it now?" Suddenly, Madanzo grabbed Nan Xiaonan's arm and even pressed down on the muzzle on her armor. It aimed directly at Asax, who was under the protection of the girl's shadow. "What are you doing?" Nan Xiaonan was shocked. "It shouldn't be Asax." Madanzo took a deep breath and said, "The one who inspired Elohim shouldn't be Asax. I want to let the thing that inspired him appear." "Nan Xiaonan, we were wrong. We were wrong all along." What did we do wrong?" "The pages. No matter what method we use to make the pages appear, it's wrong. Wrong from the beginning." Madanzo said seriously, "We shouldn't use any method to affect the development of the pages' world. Any influence, even our mere appearance, would cause the results of the pages to change. What we call pushing for a normal ending to appear. But is that really the original ending?" Nan Xiaonan couldn't help being startled. "This Book of Gaia," Madanzo took a deep breath and said, Perhaps as long as we don't know anything and quietly look at the ending of each page, we can infer what happened in the original world. It will always show us the truth. Nan Xiaonan was still in a daze, but Madanzo had already activated the attack on her armor. Wait, it's too powerful! Lady Nan screamed, it's too powerful! I can't stand it! It's too late! The protection of the young girl's phantom was still there, but the phantom gradually weakened. Everyone was affected by the light of repentance, but they did not notice that the myriad element fruit in Arthasia's hand had completely dimmed at this time. At this moment, a loud sound was heard. Something had blasted into Arthasia's body. The power was obviously terrifying. Sand and stones flew in the field. The repentance light was no longer there. Asax, who suffered the sudden attack, was bleeding all over and looked very miserable, but his eyes gradually returned to their original state. He looked at everything around him in a daze. After reciting the confession of the saint, his consciousness was almost in a half-asleep state. He could remember some of it, but he forgot more. "Master, be careful!" Marion's exclamation rang out. Asax looked up subconsciously and saw the monster-like Cain standing up slowly. Cain let out a long sigh. "Just now, thanks to you, it's really uncomfortable." Cain's expression returned to indifference again. "Now, it's time for me to return the favor, Countess Rose." Suddenly, the surrounding light dimmed as if it was distorted by something. Cain frowned. The Arthasias in front of him had actually disappeared. Cain snorted coldly and closed her eyes instantly. Then, she suddenly opened them and kicked a stone with the tip of her foot. Bang! Not far away, a coral tree was smashed into pieces. Cain moved and in the next moment, he was under the smashed coral tree. His eyes were suspicious. "Did I miss?" "No, I hit him." On the ground, in a pile of debris, there was a broken arm. Asax only felt that he was pulled by something, and then the surrounding environment began to fly away. Suddenly, he fell to the ground. At the same time, another figure also fell to the ground. It was a warrior in black armor. This was the standard armor of the black-armored warriors in his castle. You seem to be the one from Norsta?" Mr. Asax was so weak that he couldn't even get up. "You are Griffith, right? Thank you for saving me." Griffith crawled to his feet in a miserable state. Unlike Arthasias, who had been blown up into a bloody mess and was unable to recover, Griffith still had some ability to move. It was just that his left arm was obviously missing. However, at the place where the arm was broken off, granulation was slowly growing. Griffith didn't have time to wait for his arm to come back. He even used his remaining hand to grab Asash's collar, his eyes burning with passion. "Tell me, where is the key?" Asax was speechless. Chapter 2308. Asax didn't have much of an impression of Griffith. In his impression, Griffith was Nosta's direct descendant and had been introduced into the castle by Nosta. In the past 10 years, he had only met Griffith a limited number of times. This led to Arthasias being rather puzzled by Griffith's current behavior. "Key? What key?" Not only was his expression filled with question marks, but his heart was also filled with question marks. "Sir Count, you know what I'm asking." Griffith's expression was very decisive, as if he would kill at the slightest disagreement. However, Asax could only laugh bitterly. "I don't know what key you're talking about. But if you really need a key, there are many in the drawers of the desk in the library. You can take the one you want. I'll give them all to you." "Yulia," Griffith slowly sighed. "Yulia has told me everything." "What?" Asax couldn't help but be shocked. "That's impossible." "Nothing's impossible." Griffith chuckled. "I know everything about your and Nosta's identities. I also know how you came to this world." Asax couldn't help but frown. She really told you everything?" "That's right." Griffith nodded. "Sir Count, I know you've always wanted to go back to your hometown. As for me, I also want to leave this place. Why don't we work together?" Essex really wanted to go back to the Free Cities. But he didn't know how to go back. Work together? How? He directly laughed bitterly. I don't even have a clue how to go back. Griffith said, Sir Count, I know you'll easily believe me. After all, it's about this kind of secret. Please look at this. As he said this, Griffith put his hand near his mouth. He actually vomited something in front of Essex. A pair of earrings! The earrings were sticky, but Griffith didn't mind at all. He carefully picked them up in front of Essex and smiled. They're in my hands now. Yeah, I saw it. Essex nodded. Then Griffith chuckled. Count, have you decided to cooperate with me? Was he King crazy? He suddenly ran in front of me and vomited a pair of earrings. Then he smiled evilly and asked me if I wanted to cooperate with him. Why don't you tell me clearly? What do you want to cooperate for? In short, according to the current situation, he would first agree to try. Essex was used to all kinds of situations. Even though he felt that the situation was a bit strange, he had other plans. Not now. He suddenly shook his head and said, Why? Griffith's face suddenly darkened. Essex said, Thank you very much for saving me from Cain, but I cannot leave this place now. Here, there is still one more thing that is very important to me. Griffith frowned and said, Could it be that you've really found some clues? What kind of script was this? Yulia, just what did you say to this guy? That's right. Essex nodded. He thought for a while and said, Since you know everything, I don't need to keep it from you anymore. There is indeed a very important clue here. Otherwise, why would I enter this place? Griffith frowned and said, You were attacked by the Holy See, Essex said. It was because of the attack by God bless the Holy See that I found this place. I've been looking for it for so many years, but I didn't expect it to be so close to me. Right under my feet, how unexpected. Griffith seemed to be in deep thought. Yulia and Madanzo ran away from him. But now, he caught the severely injured Rose Countess. It seemed that he didn't lose anything. In fact, he even gained something. Because Yulia's key was already in his hands. Strictly speaking, Yulia was of no use to him. But Rose Countess was different. He had the other two keys that could open the door to the other world. You mean the door is very likely to be here? Griffith was moved. Essex just let it go. He opened his mouth and said, Not only the door, but everything here. Along the way, did you see the camps left by God bless the Holy See? This geocentric world was first discovered by the God bless Church. No, it's too dangerous. Griffith shook his head. He looked at his broken arm and said seriously, I've seen the warrior from God bless the Holy See fight. He's too powerful. Yes, so powerful that it makes people feel hopeless. Essex sighed. Maybe, going back is just an extravagant hope for us. Griffith didn't say anything. His expression was even more uncertain. Suddenly Griffith said, I have a way to deal with him. What way? Griffith said slowly, The unusual species of monsters out there. You want to? Essex understood instantly. Lure those demons to deal with Cain? Griffith nodded. Yes, on the way here, I accidentally found a nest of strange demons. The number of demons there is beyond imagination. Essex suddenly had an idea. Why didn't he think of using those strange demons outside? No matter how powerful Cain was, he was only one person. Then, there were countless demons outside. Even if Cain was extremely powerful and could kill a child with one punch, with so many demons, Cain could be killed easily. That's a good idea. Mr. Essex smiled. I think I can see the way home. Let's not waste any time. Let's do it now. Wait. Griffith suddenly shouted, and then took out a handful of myriad element fruits from his pocket. There were at least 7 or 8 of them. What the hell are these? I feel that these things are very special. There were coral trees everywhere, and the trees were filled with these myriad element fruit. Arthaces was not surprised that Griffith would take out the myriad element fruits, but Griffith didn't seem to know how to use the essence fruits. That's right. Who would think of such a simple method that was almost absurd? But the essence fruits were basically able to passively accept a person's request and create substances. That is to say, along the way, Griffith had successfully triggered the passive effect of the essence fruits. At this time, Arthaces calmly took a essence fruit from Griffith's hand and said calmly, "These coral trees should have been cultivated by the God-blessed church in the past. As for the specific use, I'm still researching. As for the fruit-like crystal, you're right, it's very special." Essex looked at Griffith, who had a concerned look, and said slowly, "According to my observation, these coral trees seem to be able to absorb nutrients and power from the earth. Do you see these cracks on the ground? The light inside is some kind of energy flow." Griffith nodded. Essex said again, "The coral trees absorb the nutrients and power of the earth, and then give birth to these strange crystals. This should be some kind of new energy source." "Energy source?" Essex said. "Many weapons of the Holy See are driven by steam power. But the weakness of this steam power is quite obvious. Not only is the device huge, but the energy efficiency is also not high. The Holy See should want to create a more efficient and portable energy source. Energy was a good thing. 15 years ago, before the Holy See was defeated, the appearance of steam power brought incomparable convenience to the whole world. If it was a more advanced and efficient energy source? It seems." Griffith looked at the essence fruits in his hand. "God-blessed church will counterattack sooner or later. There are so many energy sources here. I'm afraid it's the first battle for God-blessed church to counterattack. How should these energy sources be used?" "They should need a special device to extract them," Essex said casually. "Special device?" Griffith frowned. "I don't know what kind of device it is. Don't think about it." Essex quickly stopped him. "You're a vampire, not a researcher like the Holy See. You won't understand even if you think about it. Let's think about how to lure those monsters out." Griffith nodded and casually stuffed an essence fruit into his pocket, ignoring it for the time being. If he could go through the door and head to the other world that was rich in resources, why would he care about these new sources of energy? "Tell me, where is the mother tree?" Isabel, Nero, and Marianne were all captured alive. Cain alone suppressed the whole city. Although Rose Countess had escaped, Cain did not plan to waste time to capture her. It was the same if he captured Isabel. He was interrogating her, but the results were not ideal. Elohim had fallen into a deep coma, and no matter how much he called out or injected with medicine, he could not wake him up. The mixed blood team that came this time was annihilated except for himself. This made Cain feel very aggrieved. He directly grabbed Isabel's head and lifted her up. "I know you're not afraid of death, but I think Nero won't want to see you die in my hands." "That child Nero," Isabel smiled weakly, "has always been obedient. He will watch me die in your hands." "No, I will leave before you do." The young knight's body had already been beaten to a pulp, but his voice was unusually firm and calm. Cain directly threw Isabel to Nero and turned to look at Marianne. There was only hatred in her eyes. Cain slowly sighed and said coldly, "It's okay, no matter where it is hidden, as long as the mother lode matures, there will be some movement." Isabel smiled bitterly. "Cain, you can wait. But I'm afraid Elohim can't." Cain, on the other hand, looked at Isabel expressionlessly. At this moment, he did something shocking. He walked to Elohim's side, lowered his head, and without any hesitation, bit Elohim's neck. He quickly raised his head and wiped away the blood on his lips. "That's good. You actually..." Isabel's face was full of disbelief. Cain actually turned the new Pope of the Vatican into a vampire. "Let's wait," Cain said calmly. "What the F***ck is happening?" In the distance, through the telescope, The telescope was temporarily created with the omnipotence fruit. Madanzo and Nan Xiaonan were lying on a coral tree. The moment she saw Cain bite Elohim, Madanzo could not stay still and almost fell from the tree. Crazy, crazy, this is crazy. Nan Xiaonan could not help but have a headache at this moment. She did not expect this scene at all. She did not dare to believe it. What if the group of seraphs in heaven knew that the Master of Heaven had once been turned into a vampire? I say, Senior. Nan Xiaonan could not help but smile bitterly. I heard that heaven has always been dedicated to beating vampires and maintaining world peace. You hate vampires so much, could it be because of this? You ask me, but who should I ask? Madanzo could not help but sigh. At this moment, she only hoped that this scene was created because their arrival had disrupted the development of the story, and that it had not really happened in the original world. Otherwise, Senior, don't forget that you were the one who fired that shot at Arthashes, Nan Xiaonan whispered into Metatro's ear. I know. Madanzo rolled her eyes at her. My face is already black, okay? The nest of monsters that Griffith mentioned was not far away from the canyon of the coral tree forest. This time, when Asax came out of the canyon, he did not see the illusion of that civilization again. He did not know if it could only be seen once, or it had completely disappeared. Griffith did not seem to see the illusion of this civilization. At this moment, Griffith's mind was full of thoughts on how to lure out a large number of monsters to deal with the unbelievably powerful Cain. We're here. Griffith stepped on a huge rock. Behind the rock, there was a bottomless sinkhole. Vampires had excellent eyesight, but it could not allow Asax to directly see the bottom of the sinkhole. At this moment, Griffith jumped directly into the sinkhole without saying a word. Asax also jumped in. Thanks to the strong physique of a superior aristocrat, he had more or less recovered some of his strength. However, after rejecting the blood of K-Air Lily created by universal essence, he became hungrier, so hungry that even when he saw Griffith, he had an impulse to bite him. This guy is really too beautiful.